resume the recording, and you're ready, Mr. Redfield.
Well, I gotta wait till I have.
Oh yeah, you
Gotta have a quorum.
I sent Lily out the room to get Jake. So, and I will say I saw Gene pop on, and then I saw him disappear. So, well, I'll try to keep watch. I'll keep watch.
As always, always.
I know, I did this to him, so.
Well, I'm
See.
gonna start without him. Order. So we'll do introductions, Lily.
Oh, Lily Anderson, dairy representative from south of Livingston. We are almost done calving, which is amazing. It's been so nice. What beautiful weather to calve. Milk prices are horrible because there's too much butter fat. So buy extra domestically made butter if you could, please. That'd be great. That's about it.
William.
William Kleinsaucer, swine representative, Augusta, Montana. Things are going good in the pig world. Futures are extremely high in an open market. Isoween piglet is bringing $115 right now. That's about 24 deal piglet. So on the home front, wind, I don't know where it's headed to, but it's in a hurry the last couple weeks. Hard. I mean, it was howling for the last 4 days. It was 50 miles an hour when I left this morning. It had not let up yet. I wanted to clean some barley yesterday, but with a screener, but there was no way. It was just way too much wind. Calving's about done. It's beautiful weather for that, other than the wind. And on the boar stud, on the Treasure State Sires stud we built, everything is going according to plan. We're about 85% full. Everybody that's been using the semen so far has excellent, better than normal conception rate. So it's telling us that we made the right decision to do this project, and it's looking good. It's
good. Jake Fettis, beef representative from Manhattan, Montana. About done calving on the very, very tail end, and what a difference from last year. If it was like this every year, a lot more people would be in the cattle business. Getting ready for a wholesale. We have that in nine days, I guess. So this is my last hoorah before we get rolling with that. Prices are crazy. Bull sales have been unbelievable. Calf prices right now are unbelievable. I think people finally realized what we all knew last year, and that's that we're significantly shorter than what anybody thought. And 6-weight calves are bringing $3,000 across the country, and it's just wild right now. Heifer retention does not seem like it's there, like USDA was telling us it was how it was happening, and so I think we're kind of setting prices here for the next several years, and things will be good, barring a black swan event. So I think on the cattle side of things, other than lacking moisture and concerned about grass this summer and hay, I think things are pretty good in the cattle. We'll just see what Mother Nature has in store for us. The long-term outlook for moisture looks pretty good. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that for once the weatherman is correct and we get more moisture this spring.
Greg Wishman, sheep representative. In April, it will start, that's our crazy month. So we'll have wet, heavy snow, rain, slop, mud, everything. So I can't give my brother-in-law crap for calving in January because it was nicer there than when we calved. So, but sheep market's good, lamb market's up. We got some movement in wool. Our coarser wools are worth something now. They'll at least pay you for them before they wouldn't even take them. So that's good. Same with Jake. The weather's been great. A little nervous about grass and hay, but Mother Nature always provides. Sometimes it takes her a year to do it, but she will provide. So, but just down by Hildren, north of Lewistown, we're just lost all of our snow yesterday. It was pretty much gone. So we did have an inch of moisture in that snow a couple weeks ago. That's helped. So, but son and daughter-in-law, they're calving pretty hard. So here we go.
Gene,
Hey, good morning. Hey, quick question.
That was Jay talking. I put him on mute. I have an iPhone 3 out there. Gene, is that you or perchance Eric? I don't know if that's one of you two. So whoever iPhone 3 guest is on my participant list here.
That would be me. I don't know. Now I can see myself. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We hear you.
Let's just say
All
no.
right. Well, get this thing back. I don't know. Try to get it on my computer. Cheryl had her board meeting all day the other day on her laptop, and it worked fine. I had everything up on the screen and all of the little boxes, everybody in it, and it went away, and then you just get that circling deal. So our Wi-Fi here is kind of iffy. Like last time I put it on my phone hotspot, but I thought I'd try my iPad today. So anyway, it's supposed to be 96, I think, here today. So I might have to sit outside for a while and join you guys sitting here in short sleeve shirt and shorts and sandals. And
Less mad. It's 55 degrees here.
what was that, Lily?
I said we're less mad at you because it is 55 degrees here. If it was negatives, we'd be really mad.
Yeah. So I was at Jim Peterson's house last night, and someone saw it was Jim that mentioned he talked to his son, and there was 5 weight calves in Great Falls that brought 3,000 here this week. Is that a true statement?
Yep, probably. It's wild.
Yeah, pretty wild. I think our heifers have started calving. I'll be heading home. We're going to pull out of here Tuesday. I think we'll be out of Arizona on Friday, a week from today, and be home over the weekend. So I will be there for the next meeting, and I haven't talked too much at home. So as far as an update, I guess we've had wind. I think some people there in Livingston area had some wind also, but that's just what we get when it gets warm in the spring in our country. So that I will let you guys carry on. Thank you, Alan, for running the meeting, and we'll see you. I'll comment.
All right. I really like Woodford Reserve.
What was that?
Yes, I really like Woodford Reserve. Just saying.
Okay. All right.
So is Eric on or not?
No.
Okay. Alan Redfield, cattle rep south of Livingston. It's been unusually warm, and one of the neighbors goes, "I'm not used to looking at your place and not seeing snow." And I said, "Well, I'm not used to it either, and the cows aren't eating hay, and so we're saving all the hay we can because we might need it all later, but things are going pretty good. Just getting started calving. So that's where we're at. Okay, do we have an approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Lily, seconded by Jake to approve the past minutes. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, so we'll do legal counsel update right off the bat because Lamson has a place to be in a little bit, so.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Lindsay Simon, agency legal counsel. So I don't have much as far as a legal update. I think really the only thing to touch on is we're still in the negotiation process with Rocky Vista University for a clinical internship or a rotation at our veterinary laboratory. Mr. Honeycutt and I have talked about it. We think what we would recommend is that we schedule a special meeting for the board just to finalize the agreement once we get all the language in place where it's ready for you guys to consider. I'm gonna start off this, this is not an action item, so that you don't need to make any decisions on this today. I'm just kind of giving you framework and background information. So what I would say to you is we can definitely make it happen. We can reach an agreement with them, but it's going to require obviously some risk that we take on if we decide to do this. And what I'm looking from you, from you as the board, is to kind of think about what your appetite is for that risk. Like, what are you comfortable with? Is there a point where you might say, you know what, we don't want to do this? Because we can contract as best as we can around everything, but it's really a policy decision for you as far as whether we think this is worth it. We think the benefits of this outweigh the risk of this. We're going to go forward with it. One thing that I was thinking that we might do too is if we have this special meeting, use it as a public participation. Maybe we could get some stakeholder feedback to inform you to make your decision of how important is this, like how wanted is it, what is the opposition to it. So that's kind of what we're thinking going forward, that we'll try to get something set up. I think Mr. Honeycutt knows the details as far as when Rocky Vista needs it finalized for their accreditation process. So that's the deadline we have in mind. We weren't ready to come to you at this board meeting with this, and we weren't sure based on when the next one's going to be, if that would be in time. So that's why we were thinking a special meeting might be necessary.
And Mr. Chair, I'll just add to what Ms. Simon said. Yes, as far as the scheduling, we know what March and early April look like for most of you. And so that's why we were thinking it might be best if we get it together. So Rocky Vista's timeline, and I'm sure they'd like to have an answer from us sooner than that. But I do know by May is when they have to submit their documentation to it's the American Veterinary Medical Association Committee on Education for consideration of getting provisional accreditation, which would allow them to start admitting students and moving forward from there. And they need to have, this piece has to be figured out to be able to get that provisional accreditation. So I would be thinking we'd be looking in late March sometime, depends on how quick we just order of operations. We had a draft. We responded to the draft. We've now got edits to the draft we sent. We believe that there's probably more edits that we're going to ask for. So it's all depending on how fast the game of tennis back and forth until we get to a place that we feel comfortable enough to come to the board. As I said, I think in the past, one of the things with these types of contractual obligations is I also want to make sure that we've done our due diligence, that we've got it as good as we can get it before we bring it to you, because we don't want to be bringing you half-baked ideas that later we come back and say, well, you approved that, but now there's lots of changes. So we're trying to get all that worked out, but it'll probably be in the next few weeks towards the end of March. And the reason we would do it that way is, once again, we'll need to have we'll talk a little bit later about when we need to really have our next full-on meeting. But this is something we could probably do and maybe only take an hour or so, or 2 hours of people's time, and get you on to your other stuff, and maybe do it all by Zoom if we needed to, so that you didn't have to travel here. So that's what we'll be working on. But just, we don't have to make a decision on a date or anything today. I'll reach out when we're ready and work with all of you, see if we can find a date and time that we can get that on the schedule.
And just from my perspective, and I think what we're going to do going forward is like negotiate with them, obviously, with the understanding is we'll make this happen. Like, we'll figure out an agreement, but ultimately it's going to be up to you as the board. And with the full understanding that if you come in and say, I'm not comfortable with this, I don't think this is worth it, like, you have the full authority to just shut it down and don't worry about the work that we've done, like, up to this point. Because it really is, I view it as a policy decision. Like, I can advise on what the risks are and, all of that. But as far as the benefit, like, I can't advise you on that, of what are you getting out of it? Is this helpful or not? So it's really up to you.
Mr. Fettis.
So a couple of questions, probably because I haven't been paying attention as well as I should, but Rocky Vista, is that going to be mainly large animal or small animal? What are they going to be focused on there?
I don't know that we can answer that question. I do know that one of the selling points of this is the large animal veterinary shortage that we have, particularly in very rural areas of Montana, that they want to be helpful with that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know that either they or us could guarantee
Yeah.
what type of students that they're going to get to apply.
But I feel like at that board meeting when he was here, he was pretty like adamant that it was gonna be all practice, so.
Yeah, it'll be all practice, but I think the thought process is that getting more veterinarians out there would help with the shortage.
Second question, can you run through some of your risk assessment, and what you think those might be, so that
Sure.
between now and that next meeting, we can
Yeah,
do that in our minds?
and I don't think this is so, what's the word, confidential that we need executive session. It's pretty straightforward, I think, so I'm fine doing it in open session. I mean, I guess the biggest is if we commit to this, like there is some inherent obligation that like we're locked in for at least a period of time, at least the termination period of the contract. So I guess like even if something were to go wrong, or if there's some change where we'd say we don't want to do it, it could be legislative funding, it could be Montana State University that owns the land, like who knows, anything like that, what came in that would make it difficult for us or impossible for us to fulfill the obligations there. We need the language in the contract to protect us, but at the same time, of course, Rocky Vista is admitting students based on the assurance that this is going to happen. So there's an obligation there, right? That we're locked in for at least a period of time, at least the termination period notice, which originally they proposed 12 months. The revisions came back with 18 months, which basically means even if we tell them, hey, we're giving notice to terminate, we're not going forward with this anymore. If it ends up being an 18-month termination period, we've still got to carry on forward 18 months. We're trying to work in some protections for things like if it's legislative funding, where it's like we can't do it. I don't know whatever we end up with the final product, but there might be a period of time where we're financially obligated for that termination period after we have said we won't do it anymore. There's just inherent risk, of course, with bringing people who do not need to be in our building into our building as well. There's that. My main concern would be obligated under the contract to continue it for some period of time, even if there's an occurrence that happens that maybe makes it financially difficult for us. Or one concern I have is what if we can't find qualified applicants for this job? Or what if we hire a qualified applicant and they leave, and we still are obligated to continue on this obligation for these students without the additional staff members? What kind of burden is that going to put on the lab? Those kind of things.
Regardless of our decision, either way, it'll take years for us to see results, no matter what. I mean,
I think that's fair to say. Yes, they'd have to finish and graduate and get licensed. I mean, but that to me is also part of the policy, determination for you. Like, what is the benefit? Like, having this collaboration in place might be a benefit, even if it's not tangible results with more licensed veterinarians in the state. Like, there's a lot of considerations.
Yeah, and I'll speak to the policy side. So, obviously Ms. Simon's working very hard on the legal protections that both parties probably need. But more especially, what legal protections are we worried about that we feel like we need? And then on the policy side, that's the other reason that we're thinking maybe a one-off meeting, and then make sure we advertise it very well. Because as we've talked about it, there's also not a good sense of where our stakeholders stand on this at the present time. Like, is this something that the majority would come forward and strongly express as a need? Or is this something that people would say, yeah, well, if the department wants to do that, fine, but we don't see that as a huge problem. We don't see that as a potential solution. So getting some sense of what our stakeholders feel about it too, before jumping in. And then if it does in any way, shape, or form, complicate or distract or anything else from any other part of our mission, that we don't have people saying, well, you shouldn't have ever done that. And we leapt into a multi-year agreement. So.
I think that's all I have, unless you have any other questions on legal matters for me.
Anybody, anything else? All right, thank you. Hey, Mike, executive officer.
Yes, real quick, Yellowstone National Park will be a very quick update. Obviously, the weather has not yielded a lot of opportunity to deal with bison this year coming out of the park. We've not seen a migration or a strong migration. In fact, on the northern management area, bison haven't even made their way towards the Stevens Creek. There's been about 20 removed by tribal hunting on the west side of the park. And that's really the only tribal hunting that has occurred to speak of. Back in the middle of February, 17th and 18th, we had a cohort of about 150 bison that had reached the point of graduating from quarantine. They had been there for about 2 years. And so they've gotten through all the testing protocols, were able to be certified brucellosis free. Those were transferred to Fort Peck for the now additional year of quality assurance testing that'll take place there before they're fully free to go wherever the Intertribal Buffalo Council determines they should go. And so that's, so you can tell if you do the math there, if you're counting those that have been sitting in quarantine for a year and a half, 2.5 years as part of the population, that we've only removed 170, but only 20 or so that have been roaming around. So we know where we started with bison numbers in the mid 5,000s. We know that we'll be in the upper 5,000s, low 6,000s next season unless something changes. But time is also not on our side. We're starting to run into the time period where it'll be difficult if we did get some late migration to really get a lot done, because we are actually getting close to the time period where obviously when they're heavy pregnant hunting and those things, there's not much of an appetite for that at that point in time, just for the sake of the animals. And obviously if we were to have an out migration with a lot of pregnant animals, the food transfer program becomes less of an option, because we obviously don't want to be transporting pregnant bison on trailers that might be giving birth as they're going down the road, things of that nature. So time is getting short on any operations that we might be able to do there as well, because there is always the opportunity of some sort of very, very late winter push and some migration that happens very, very late. But I just wanted to make sure the board's aware of, if we did get some migration like that and you didn't see a lot of food transfer, those things, that there are other considerations we have to make in whether we can pull that off or not. And I hope the board would agree with us that, with brucellosis infected animals, we don't want them being transported down the road if there's a risk of them giving birth once we've started moving on, once they get to a meat facility. So.
Mr. Chair, could you even eat an animal that's that far pregnant? I mean, would you want to eat it?
I've learned to never pass judgment, Mr. Kleinsausser, on what people might want to eat. So I probably wouldn't want to, but I don't, I know a lot of people take risk on things I would never take risk on. So, but that's, and I guess I'll put it in that context. It's not really listed on the agenda, but just, and while Ms. Simon's still in the room, in case she wants to add to it, obviously in the last, few weeks, and we talked about it, I think at the last board meeting, that the BLM, or the Department of Interior, Secretary of Interior, had put out their proposed final decision with regards to BLM grazing leases up in South Phillips County. That they had reversed that decision on allowing bison to graze on those allotments on the basis that it did not align with the Taylor Grazing Act and FLTMA. I think I could probably stumble my way through what that acronym means, but that's a law passed in the late 1970s governing BLM public land grazing. So that proposed final decision is out there. If you've not been able to stay up on the news, American Prairie and several other supporting organizations have filed protests of that proposed final decision. And so now the protest period has ended, and I don't know exactly when that clock started, but BLM would have a 45-day period at which time they have to issue a final decision and final order. And so that's sort of the next step in that scenario that we've been involved in from a legal standpoint. And so we'll see what the Department of Interior just makes as their final proposed decision. I have all assumptions that whatever final decision they give, that somebody will probably be going to court at that point in time. So that there'll be more steps beyond that. I guess the final decision only dictates who's going to be the first person to go to court. So we'll see. That's the realism of how that process is probably going to play out. So that's everything on the bison front. I'll stop there in case there's any more questions or comments.
Any questions?
Okay. Legislative interim update. We have still yet to be scheduled for our Economic Affairs Interim Committee oversight meeting of the agency. They do have meetings scheduled in March. I have not looked at their agenda, but at some point, if not this meeting, it'll certainly have to be probably their next meeting that the agency will be due to come in specifically on the agenda for economic affairs and just do an agency overview and answer questions of how things are going through the interim. We do have an interim budget committee meeting that will be on March 17th. That we will be on the agenda as we are every time. So that'll be our Section C. So we'll be in that meeting along with our other Section C partners, DNRC, FWP, Ag, DEQ, and Department of Transportation. This time, I mean, they've just sent us their legislative analysis on how we're doing budget-wise. I don't foresee there being any issues with that meeting. We're progressing very well through our budget, and that's all good news. And so far with the interim budget committee meeting, all of our quarterly meetings with them have gone well. So I suspect they will again. We're probably starting to transition into the season where these interim committees are going to begin to probably ask us about what we plan to do for the next session, either policy, legislation wise, budget wise. Obviously for March, we won't have answers for them. But the other thing that with regards to economic affairs is that at some point down the road, when we have approval from the board and approval from the governor's office on legislative items, we will be seeking to go to them and get pre-approval for drafting through them so that we're upfront in the drafting process. But like I said, they'll start asking us about those things, I'm sure, at these meetings. But obviously, we've not made final decisions on those things as a board and probably won't for another 2 months. So we won't have probably a lot of clear answers for them on that, but that'll be what they're probably going to be most interested in here over the next few months. I guess I'll stop and see if there's any other questions about our interactions with the legislature here in the interim.
Any questions?
Okay, I'll move forward. I'll pop up here. I'll try to put it up on the screen for you where we're at on our OGSM and what we've been reporting to the governor. Brian and I, last met with the governor. Go back. I have to remember. I've got it on here so I can remember the date. Yes, it was back on February 9th with the governor. And just so you know what information he had, let me blow that up a little bit. That's really small. So now that I've moved into my 50s, I have to empathize with small print. On the slaughter figures, we're still doing pretty good. You would suspect with some of the economic headwinds that might be existing for processors out there, as well as short cattle supply that we'd be seeing. We are seeing some retraction from last year, but you're still seeing a pretty, if you were to go back 5 years, you're starting, you do see that we have established sort of a higher pace of doing local processing, at least through our state inspected facilities and our custom exempts, than we did pre-COVID. So some of those efforts I do still continue to say has yielded some systemic increase, even if it's only slightly a percentage, or if that's not a representation of what the capacity is, because maybe we were obviously not utilizing all the capacity, maybe it's at least an indicator of more desire for locally sourced meat here within Montana by consumers, and more effort by producers to try and locally sell meat versus other avenues. The On the cash side and budget side, as always, when you're looking at it, we didn't have that'll catch up on the revenue side as we start to get the per capita fee in, and that's starting to roll in at a good pace now. It's funny. I opened up one of my first reports that I got from the Department of Revenue, so they do a monthly census spreadsheet, and so I can actually see by individual if I want to go through the thousands of names and see the individuals who have paid and what they paid. And the first spreadsheet I opened up, like the third line was Alan Redfield. So kudos to be.
And Department of Revenue did make an Instagram post about paying, and I shared it to the spur line. So, and no one came after me with pitchforks. So I was pretty happy.
So that'll start rolling in, and that'll catch up that revenue line. But as you can see, our expenses, and I think that this will align with what you're going to hear from Brian later today on the budget side, that we are maintaining our expenses below budget, doing a really, really good job with that. Some things we wish we were spending more money, like some of the systemic vacancies we've had that we haven't been able to fill. We'd rather not be saving that money. We'd rather have those people hired. But we are doing really good in keeping our expenses under control. The revenue will catch up and pass that expense line, I have no doubt, here in the next month or two as the per capita fully rolls in. And we're that cash down at the bottom, and that's the liquid cash balance, just over $13 million. That's not including the money that we haven't been able to use yet. So the re-record money, we take all that out. So that 13 million is a true liquid cash balance, cash that we have available to use, and is not restricted by any other time. So the department maintaining that, and that's all sources, that's brands, per capita fee, all sources of revenues that are in there. But again, this department still maintains a good, healthy balance that has us well prepared for any sort of calamity that might befall us. And we tend to be doing good on staying very conservative with our expenses, and watching how that plays into our revenues very carefully. So I guess the story there is, hopefully the board would see it that way and our constituency that way, as continued responsible financial management of the agency.
William, I have a question, Mr. Chair. So on these per capita fees, is that public information? Who's paid and for what they pay, or is that?
Yes, it could be. It's FOIable. Yes, if someone were to make a request, you can get that information because it's the same as tax information. So it's treated the same way from a standpoint. So if someone wanted to find out who is paying per capita or not paying per capita, they could make a public information request, and we would have to comply with that.
So it's not available without a request?
Correct. Right. And obviously you wouldn't get, all the unbridled information. We don't give out addresses and things of that nature because we have a prohibition in state law for public information requests that they don't constitute a distribution list. So you all will probably, because I know I used to be in the sales world in agriculture, and I know what us salespeople like to do to get information and to get sales lists to go down. But I can promise you at Department of Livestock, we can't provide someone like a list of every dairy in the state and their address and their phone number, so that all the people who want to sell stuff to you can just get that and have a nice, nice Excel list of leads to work from. So yes, you can get that information, but you'll probably get who paid it and what amount they paid, and that's about as much information as we'd be able to share.
It's been used for political purposes also.
Yes, it has been. We have occasionally when you see that someone claims to be a rancher, you'll see that they didn't pay any per capita. They know that because people FOIA that, and so it is not atypical for us to get a FOIA request, say from the Republican Senatorial Committee, like out of DC, the Democratic Senatorial Committee. So we see those things come through, and we do have to comply with those public information requests. On vacancies, we actually were doing pretty good. This last month we were talking to the governor. I'll talk to you. We had 14 vacancies, which is what we had the month previous. The good news is the 14 vacancies we had in February were all the same vacancies we had in January. So we are filling some positions, and I would say the veterinary diagnostic lab, obviously, as one of our pathologists is leaving and now has left, and then the systemic microbiologist vacancy is probably one of the areas where we're seeing more of a customer service hit on what we can do in that unit, and also putting a lot of pressure on staff. But there's light in the tunnel that Mr. Spatz will share with you during his time, that we are making progress on getting some applicants for those jobs, qualified applicants, and they're moving forward with the process to hopefully get someone accept the offer and get those filled. Meat and poultry inspection, you see, if you're looking at that bar, you'll see, but those vacancies are largely new positions that were granted by the legislature that we had not yet hired. So as far as the positions we want to have hired, we've been holding the line pretty well in meat and poultry inspection. The markets, Jay's walked in, he's had some vacancies that, it's not, we're busy. It just seems to be busy at the markets all the time. I know Glendive has been kind of an area, as I look back there, that's been a little bit difficult. Billings, a little bit difficult, with some vacancies, but working through it. So I don't know that we've had any real, yes, people are working extra time, overtime. People are coming in from outside the area to help people cover sales, doing things that all of our staff do. But I don't know that we've had impacts that customers would see, but we've certainly had impacts that our staff are dealing with having to cover and maybe work some extra overtime, some extra hours, those types of things. But largely, outside of those, we've been pretty good. And our vacancy rate, I will say this, when I meet with the governor and the department administration directors in the room as well, I would say when we have 14 vacancies, which is about 10% of the department, that's about as high as we typically ever go. And I will say, like, oh, it's pretty high this month. And they look at it and they kind of go, yeah, comparative to other agencies, that's not very high. Like that's, and so they don't sweat it. But for us, we usually, it's better for us to be running in the single digits on vacant positions. But that's not been the case the last couple months, but I'm hopeful that there's some signs that's getting ready to turn around. Market cattle movement, just as the commission companies continue to do strong business, it appears. Really, surprised that you see on that fiscal year 26 line, you probably can't see the colors of the months so well because they blend together a little bit, but we're just, this last, as of January, we were just a little tick ahead of 2025 still. So, of what per head had gone through the commission companies. So we're still seeing strong movement of cattle through the commission companies. And of course, when I put that in the weekly report, I also provide that report where that Mr. Moore had asked for once upon a time, where you can see a little bit more of a breakdown of what those are. Jay and I had a conversation yesterday where we sort of were looking out the future, and like Mr. Fettis said in his opening, we can look out the window too, and And my perception might be is, we're like, one of these years, we're going to have a slacker fall run. But if this persists and people need to sell off more cows, then we could see, if they need to cull more cows because of lack of forage, we, even in this low cattle environment, we could see our staff at the commission companies could still be pretty busy during stretches this fall. So, but at some point, we figure we've got to have a break of those numbers at some point, just because we've either run out of cattle to sell, or we're in a rebuilding mode where people are holding more back, and we're not seeing as much come out into the marketplace. So, or we're seeing a change in what's coming to the marketplace. But for the commission companies, that's good news. For our staff, that means, they continue to stay pretty busy. But Jay tells me that it is starting to finally slow down out there a little bit here this spring. Just on the highs and lows, I just pointed out that, we had gotten in the livestock loss board earlier this week to make decisions on those, that we had gotten 9 grant applications for the livestock loss board mitigation program. So we're getting, we're helping the livestock loss board get their grant money out the door. That had kind of built up on them over time. And we're probably, I think, decided that they're going to do another round in May, because they still have money left in their accounts over the annual, that, there's no reason not to just keep going out and seeing if people need range riders, if people need supplies for guard dogs. Let's just keep going out there and get this money out into the hands of producers so that they can use it. I did point out to him that, because it had been something we had talked about in the past, that it was a high that Tawny had gotten some really good news on RFID tags and the allocations. We'd gotten bigger allocations from the federal government. The purchases that the board did at the end of the fiscal year last year, that we were starting to head into the vaccination season in a much better position than we were the year before. I'll put it out there that it was definitely a high that the elk capture that we worked with FWP and the Crow Reservation on, yielding no positive elk in those herds, was really good, because that is a strong area of concern that we have over there because of the border with Wyoming and Wyoming's brucellosis area of concern there. And some of the things that they've experienced on the Wyoming side of the border. So we were happy to have no positive elk. No need to consider any sort of expansion of the DSA into that area. Again, I pointed out that we were cautiously optimistic with a new pool of critical lab position applicants, that we had gotten some good, highly qualified applicants for that microbiologist position, and that was a good sign, because we had a little bit of crickets there for a while. I pointed out the Ag Labor Summit is a high. Mike Spatz and I went to the Ag Labor Summit, participated in that. Had some really good conversations with people. Mike had a table. He had some really good conversations with people, basically mainly with producers who were there, just trying to get them to think about, as they think about their family members. We have good paying jobs with good benefits. And if you've got a family member that you want to keep in Montana, and I think one of the things I told, I set up on a panel that I was there, and I made the comment that, once your kids get to Denver or Seattle or wherever, it's really hard to bring them back. But if there's a good paying job with good benefits that will keep them in the neighborhood, then, that might help with your succession, and it also keeps them close by to help with the ranch as well and be ready to take over. So if we can be part of people's transition plans, like knowing that, maybe somebody comes and works for us for 3 or 4 years, we know they're going to go home to the family business one day, but that's fine. We get 3 to 4 years out of them. We keep them in Montana. Those are the types of people we're looking for. And I do think our jobs, I'll just point out that one of the things we did there is that, we deal a little bit with that. I don't want to say this because you as stakeholders and fee payers in the department may not like to hear this, but, I think there's this thing, well, I wouldn't work for the state. You don't get paid anything. I was like, oh, I don't know if you've taken a look lately at what the starting salaries are and the type of benefits that we offer in state employment. And they could be really good opportunities for young people. They should be looking at them more strongly. And then also on the high was just we had gotten an application for a new state inspected meat and poultry business in Bridgetown. So always good to see people maybe adding to it. The only things I put on the lows was I'd already shared with you that, sort of disappointing to not be making progress on the population of Yellowstone bison and knowing what that might lead to in future years. And, it's not really a low. You can kind of expect these things, but now the lab take ownership date has been pushed back to May. That was a low. I'll say we were progressing very well on all the individual things that we had pointed out to the governor. We're getting prepared for the 3-year federal audit and meat and poultry inspection. We're engaging with Montana Egg Products. That audit took place last week. We don't have the results of it, but worked with Montana Egg Products on a third-party audit of the lab, hopefully to keep that business for their salmonella testing that comes out of that facility. We're helping Department of Ag a little bit, or trying to say we'll help with them on their CPRG rollout. It's a big grant that they have, helping identify people that we know of that might be in looking for that type of funding on digesters, those types of things that we've come across. Getting the lab move initiated, getting our MOUs between us and the university, between us and our property management folks who will help us with obviously the janitorial, mechanical, those types of services that we need to get done. And I put on here a ribbon cutting by April, but of course we're being pushed back to May. That's probably now going to be a June ribbon cutting is probably what's going to be more likely. We did get the elk capture done. We did get a good plan together for getting the free RFID tags out and maybe avoiding some of the headaches that happened this time last year that came to this table. Jay's still working on how we expand ServiceNow out to some local inspectors and how it works in that environment. There's certainly been some appetite. There's been some people who have asked for that. Some folks who have gotten exposed to our staff who are using it, and they've seen how it works there. And then they want to know, well, why can't my local inspector that comes and works my bull cell, why can't they do that? And so, because that seemed to go so smoothly and not so many pieces of paper. And so we're trying to figure out, how we test that in those environments and get that expanded. One of the things we're working on that you guys have been kind of under your feet, but there has been a decree of all websites being ADA compliant, meaning if hearing impaired, visually impaired people interacting with a website that those are compliant by the law with ADA. Brian has been the lead on that. I think he's found a solution for that because our website was not ADA compliant. A lot of non-ADA compliance, and so it's been kind of a big lift, mainly like PDFs and those things, because you would click on those PDFs, and if you had readers where when you would browse over things, it would read it. It didn't work. The PDFs, it didn't. And some of the visual images, like you're supposed to be able, if you tab over a visual image, it's supposed to tell you what that image is. And so Brian knows way more about that than I do, but he's been making good progress on that. He's found a vendor, I don't want to scare you, but potentially using some artificial intelligence technology to do that a lot more efficiently and quickly. And then, of course, the big thing in the next 6 months is engaging with the board and our stakeholders on what do we need to be thinking about doing legislatively and budget-wise here in the next session. And getting those identified, getting them to the board, getting them approved so that we can get those turned into the legislature. With that, that's everything I have to say on what we presented to the governor and sort of the checkup that I gave him on how the department is progressing in this 6-month window. But I'd be open to any further questions or comments that board members might have.
How many elk did they capture?
Oh, you'd have to ask me that.
99.
Dr. Shemansky's on the road today.
99.
99. Yeah, it was in the report, but I couldn't remember.
And those will all be collared and tracked for a year?
Yes.
Or however long we call it.
See where they're moving, yeah. Yeah. And how they're moving. Again, just to put a finer point on that, you know, that, and I will say that was the big win there was getting that cooperation from the Crow tribe, to do that. Because that has been an area that we're worried about. It has been an area, and I have to admit that one of the reasons why, you know, one of the things we said to the Crow tribe was, we want to know because we want to be able to help you, because there was an incident here in the past couple of years where there was a positive in that Bruce area concern Wyoming, and I read in the press that, you know, you had producers saying, well, it's those elk coming down from the Crow tribe in Montana that's what's causing our problem. And I was like, so to get, you know, I was like, so that was a little bit of incentive for the Crow tribe that we need to know what's going on there, because, you know, that's helpful information for us to rebut. No, it's not. That's not the issue, or that's not what's happening. So anyway, that worked really well, and thank you, Mr. Rickle, for having the number on the tip of your tongue.
So, Mr. Chairman,
With Gene, Greg Daly.
Oh, and Emily walked in. She may be able to help me answer questions.
Greg, go ahead. What is the hang up on the lab and stuff, or is just general?
Mainly it's just general. One, they asked for an extra 30 days at one point because they were too aggressive with their timeline. The contractor, Swank, was. And it's reasonable because Swank has never built a facility like this. There's not many of these types of facilities around the country. And, you know, so they were thinking about the past projects, but there's a lot of nuances to building a lab complex like this. And not just on our side, there's nuances to the wool lab. There's things that are unique about those facilities that they just didn't factor in. And there's been some design changes, and that's natural when you build a building like that, you know, where they come in and they go, oh, we didn't really think about this in design. This should work. You know, these cabinets should swing this way versus this way. And so there's little things like that too that come up that I think, I don't know of any building that ever gets done exactly on the time that it says, but I am hopeful that this pushback is the last one that we'll see. And that in June we'll be ribbon cutting and celebrating, and there'll be a brand new VDL, a brand new wool lab, and the folks who have been working on this for decades can celebrate.
Gene.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Gene.
Yes. So I was looking at that slaughter numbers that Mike had up there, and I'm just wondering how many of the slaughter pants that we had were state inspected have gone to federal inspection in the last year. Is that a factor or not?
In the last year, we've had two. It's not a major factor because you know, they're very small in terms of what they're slaughtering. It might make a difference of a couple of hundred head, you know, on the cattle side mainly, but not a huge change or a huge impact.
So then I have a quick question for Jake. Then in the circle that he works with, are you seeing less demand? Is there just less people out there seeking custom slaughtering or slaughtering of their own animals, or what are your thoughts on the decrease? It seemed like that's, you know, it was a fairly substantial decrease here in this last month or so.
Hey, Gene, let me correct. Maybe I said that wrong, or maybe when you're looking at it small on your phone, I know it's really hard to see. We're trying to share it with you. Throughout the year, we are on pace with last year. So we're not seeing I think that's what I was trying to point out, is that we're not seeing a decrease, that we're sort of right on the same trend line as we were last year. And that's with those two plants that have left us no longer contributing numbers that we see, because those numbers don't include the federal. Those two that went federal, the feds don't share those numbers with us. So we're actually right on track with. I would say we haven't seen a decrease in demand. I would say it's been the same, in spite of what we know happens with how much money you can make when you're slaughtering animals. We can see the economics of that, and also and the limited cow supply. We're still processing about the same as we did across the state last year. So sorry if I misspoke on that, Mr. Chair, but I'll let Mr. Fettis answer about what the appetite and demand is out there locally for folks.
Well, I think the demand for local product is higher than it's ever been. It's just a matter of people cashing in on a 6-weight steer or keeping it to fat and putting all that extra money into it. I mean, feed's cheap right now, but most people aren't feeding out of a silage pile either. They're going to their local store and buying 50-pound bags of cracked corn or cob, and that's not cheap. So, I mean, I think on the supply side, we're going to see the same issues that we're seeing around the country eventually. And I don't know if that'll be later this year when people can sell those cattle for so much money or when, but I mean, I can tell you right now, when I buy a fat animal today, it's about double what it was a year and a half ago. And so our prices on local product have had to go up significantly, and people are still buying it. People still want it. And I think that's the concern of everybody in the beef industry is at what point do the consumers push back on price? Because I thought we would have seen it a year and a half ago, and it's continued to go up, and we still have higher demand than we've ever had. So I don't know at what point we see a pushback, but with what these animals are worth, I think we're going to see a shortage in supply, which is going to lead to higher prices, and we'll see where the consumers stop buying it. Because right now it hasn't happened.
William. Mr. Chair, so Jake, what's a fat animal bring now?
On the hoof? Mm-hmm. Well, you're well over $4,000. So by the time you process it and everything, it gets real expensive. Because our processing costs, so that's what a lot of people don't understand. The plants in Montana, we throw all of the offal away. The big plants that process thousands a day make enough off of what we throw in the garbage can to pay their processing expenses. So they essentially process for free, whereas it costs us, $1,000 an animal to do it. So that's why the grocery store is typically always cheaper than local. You would think with all the freight and everything, it would be cheaper to buy a local, but it's not, because you process 5,000 head a day. And I think the last I saw was $450 to $500 a head is what they were getting for the offal. Take that times 5,000 a day, and that turns out to be a lot of money.
So what do you call what?
The intestines, the hide, everything that we throw away essentially.
They're rendering.
Yep, but there's no rendering plants around here, so it goes in the garbage can. But the big plants, they sell tripe. They send that to other countries. All the products that we don't eat in the U.S. that those big plants produce, they send overseas to be eaten and be used, but we can't do it in shipping container amounts. So the small plants end up throwing it away.
Any other questions?
Okay, next topic, 2027 session executive planning process. So just to give you a heads up and maybe some idea of where dates are going to be important as we move through this year. I'm going to share this, Gene. Hopefully you can see this document that I'm about to put up, but it's basically Brian worked this up from the big spreadsheet that we get from the Office of Budget and Program Planning of what our deadlines are going to be. Some of this matters to you, some of it doesn't. The first date that is going to matter, well, one, I'll point out March 27th is the deadline to submit House Bill 10. That's the big state IT plan bill. So any sort of IT infrastructure, software, hardware, major changes in IT all go into that bill. And it's governed by State Information Technology and the Legislative Finance Committee. We have no House Bill we're planning no House Bill 10 requests, so we should not be, unless somebody puts something in it that is outside of our control, we plan to not interact with that. So that deadline will not be meaningful for us. Our LRBP stands for Long Range Building Plan. We've built our long range building. We don't plan on building another one for a while. And we don't need any catch up funding or anything like that. So we will not have anything to submit for that by April 1st. And so we don't need to worry about that deadline. I'll just point out April 30th is a deadline for us internally, executive program and service inventory. So the legislature changed some laws last time where they're asking us for more detail about the different programs and services we offer. What's the legal justification for those? How do you find those in our budget? What are the reporting levels? They're wanting to get into that more because, as Mr. Redfield will tell you, a lot of times, you may, if you're not paying attention, there's a lot of detail gets lost in the state budget because they'll just be like one line item that has $27 million in it, and that's all you get. That's all you see. So they're trying to get to more detail. They're trying to understand more, and so we've got a deadline to provide that information to our Office of Budget Program Planning and also over to our legislative fiscal analyst who works with our Section C subcommittee. The first real big deadline that matters to the board, and it'll explain why I said what we need to do about a board meeting earlier today, is May 6th is when our legislative concepts, not the actual written language, drafted language, but our concepts of what we want to do legislatively. So I've given the staff here a deadline of next week to have their legislative concepts in, and we're going to analyze them. And so we'll be looking to you if we can't meet in March because of everybody's schedule, at least there in the last half of April, so that we have time to get that in front of you, get your approval on it, which is required, and then be prepared for those things that you approve to have those in the formats that we need to have them in to turn them in to the legislature, or not the legislature, but the governor's office of budget and program planning. So that's the first big major deadline that we have that impacts the board. We have IT strategic plan due that Rick will be working on. Rick Quarter, our CIO, that'll be due on May 29th. June 1st, and that'll be our standard budget for the next year. Brian can explain what that is, but that's basically just how we take those big program pieces that are in the, so in the Department of Livestock, you could conceivably, if you went to the program level, our whole budget might be 3 lines because we only have 3 programs. We have in it, but there's a lot that happens in those programs. So animal health and food safety, you have meat and poultry inspection, you have the DSA, you have all that. So they have to put together how all that money is going to flow from the program level into all the different pieces. Brian, you want to say something on that?
Mr. Chair, if you would. This is a line for Evan, for me to keep track of. But when we go to build IBARs and build the budget for the next session, what they do is they use the standard budget. So when you look in your budget and you see travel and communications and overtime, that's where the standard budget is built in there. And then they take that 27 budget and they use that as that's where we're plugging things in, and that's what they base off. Because otherwise they just care about like Mike was saying, the personnel line and the operating line, and they don't care about those other ones, but they need those lower level budget lines. And so Evan has to have the standard budget finalized and populated by that date so that they can build the IBAR's budget for the budget.
Yeah. And then the next bit, also that week, you'll see executive planning process requests and lease vehicle surveys. So that's budgetary, but we're going to try to combine those things. So when we meet at the end of April, we're also going to try to bring forward any augments, outside of base level funding that we think we need to make to the budget or as actual decision packages that we'll take forward to the committee. So those have to be turned into the Office of Budget and Program Planning, the governor's office, by the 5th of June. But we're going to try to make our decision by the end of April and get ahead of the game and get your approval on those. And so we're ready to turn those in. Doesn't mean, the good news is if we miss something, if something popped up in May and the board or somebody said, hey, here's one thing you didn't think about. There will be some additional time, but we're trying to get all our hay in the barn by the end of April. HR data. So on July 3rd is when they have to make sure. So we do have a pay increase coming at the beginning of July. So that's a line for Mike Spatz, really, that all of the HR data on salary, classification, all that stuff has to be accurate and in the system on July 3rd. And the reason that has to be done that way is because then you see on July 21st, the snapshot is taken. So what the snapshot is they will snapshot every position in the department, what it's currently paid, and that's what our base personal services budget or pay budget, benefit budget, all that's what that would be built on for the I don't know why that keeps happening, but we just probably need to stop this computer at the back of the room, Dale. We can. So the snapshot will just snapshot that. So what happens with vacancies? Now I'll explain that, because when I first got here and I didn't really understand things, the board at that time was really scared about vacancies because they thought if there was a snapshot and a position was vacant that we would lose it. And that's not how that works. But what they will do is they will snapshot it at 85%, and I don't know if that'll change, but that's what it was last time. So 85% of the market midpoint for that job classification, and they do their market survey. What's the low? What's the high? There's the midpoint. They snapshot that position at 85% of the market midpoint if it's vacant. So it's still in our budget. So all these vacant positions that we've had that have been systemically vacant, some for more than a year, they always remain in our budget. We have that authority figure in our budget, so that will carry forward. But the snapshot is what our base budget for salaries and personal service expenses for the next biennium will be. And so that'll happen on July 21st. So usually what that means is if you were planning to do any pay increases for anyone, you want to make sure you get it done before July 21st, because you want to make sure that it's right in the next budget, right? If you make pay increases after that date, then you may have a little bit of a gap between what your budget's going to be and what you're paying that position. We're small enough and manage that well enough that that's not usually a huge problem for us, but for bigger agencies, I'm assuming that could be a problem. September 1st is the House Bill 2 budget submitted, and that's an OBPP deadline. That's when they have to have all their works, they have to have all the inputs from the agencies, and they have to have their version of House Bill 2 built. And then eventually that will feed in and become the governor's budget that he transfers to the legislature. And then one that I don't believe we're going to worry about, and we never want to worry about, and Mr. Redfield would agree with me on this, is October 16th. If we had any House Bill 3 requests, that would be our deadline. And House Bill 3 is the oops bill. That's what I call it. It's the something unforeseen happened. We had to overspend our budget. So you put it in House Bill 3, and then basically House Bill 3 lets you borrow against future authority to close that gap in this biennium budget. And usually the only reason you would use that is if you'd had, like, let's say you'd had an unforeseen legal judgment against you for $3 million. Like, well, we had to pay that legal judgment. The court ordered it. It wasn't in our budget. But basically they'll let you, and sometimes in House Bill 3, you can be like, we need general fund or we need contingency funds or things like that. The only time that I ever remember us being in House Bill 3, I want to say was either maybe in the 17 session or 19 session, maybe it was 19 session. But it was one of those deals where we had reserves of state special revenue, and all we needed them to do is give us the authority. We had the cash. But we haven't been in that bill since then, and we don't plan to be in that bill this time, because it is sometimes it is truly an oops. You just overshot your budget somehow, and you're not going to make it to the end of the year if they don't give you an augment. But we don't plan to have anything or have any needs to submit anything for that deadline that would put us in House Bill 3. But that is the calendar. So that's what dictates why we need to sort of meet at the end of April. specifically. And if we don't get all, and if there are other budget needs that we would want to put in before June 5th, that, anything that comes up or any ideas that come up after we meet in April, then that would dictate we would need to be meeting again at the end of May to get board approval and consider on those things so we'd have them ready for the deadline. And I kind of skipped over the lease vehicle survey. That's basically, they want to know heading into the next session, how many vehicles are you going to need, right? How many, and so that's an indication of how many new vehicles the state is going to need to get its hands on during that next session. And to be prepared for that. And we know that even they do, I look back here at Jay, but I know Jay's been waiting on some trucks for a long time. So even though we do that way ahead of time, they're still sometimes behind. So that we need to get switched out. But that's the session calendar and kind of how we interact with it, or the planning for the session. And in there are things that I mentioned this morning where on our legislative request, going to economic affairs, getting pre-approval for drafting, doing all of those things that are outside of what our interactions with the Office of Budget Program Planning. But I also like to share that. I know we got at least one stakeholder in the room. I also like to remind stakeholders, right, of why, if they show up to us with a great idea in December, why I'm like, no, can't really do anything. You can do whatever you want to do about that, but the department really, unless it's something that the governor really likes and he says, yeah, I'm going to support this, our hands get kind of tied because the governor's budget is baked and the governor's policy agenda is already baked. But it is very routine for people to, it's actually very routine for people to come to us 2 weeks into session with ideas. And we're like, did you see how many bills they just dropped? Do you know where you're going to be in the order of priority here? So I also like to do that for our public folks to say, yeah, you need to be with not just us, but with all the agencies. You need to be having discussions about what you plan to do or what you might need from them. You probably should be having those conversations with them this spring if you hadn't already started doing that.
So anybody have any comments on that or whatever? I just have a thing that I don't put on is, do we need to update any of the penalties, fines that have to require legislation? Cause we were talking about that before, trying to get things into the current century.
We certainly can. I know one of the things that, just for example, I've been trying to keep a running list of things that have come up at this table, things that have come up in staff discussions. Don't know that we're going to pursue it or not, but one of the issues that we dealt with in the last year was unlicensed practice. And it is very difficult to deal with unlicensed practice. And so we had some conversation about that, and really it was in the meat world, but it would apply in dairy. It would apply all over the board, anywhere we're dealers, anywhere we license people. And we've been looking at, did we need more teeth in how we deal with that when we find someone because honestly, and you guys saw it as we talked through it, a couple of them, that it would almost be like we have more power over. If you have a license, we have power, but if you're out there doing it with no license, our teeth of what we can do is actually much more limited, which seems backwards. It seems like we should be able to be very aggressive with the people who are slaughtering animals without a license, selling fluid milk without a license, being a livestock dealer without a license. You'd think we'd have more teeth to do those things, but actually we don't.
Okay, anything else on that one?
All right, and last, I think we've already kind of covered that, VDL moving preparation. I've asked Dr. Shemansky and Dr. Judah to get me a moving plan that I hope the next time we meet formally, you'll see a written move plan of how they intend to get everything from Marsh Lab over to the new lab and up and running. The incinerator, I'm told, is finally coming. I'm hopeful that I'll put it in the air, because if I put it in the air, it won't happen. But my joke to Dr. Shemansky was just says, like, well, at this point, hopefully we don't have to knock a wall down to get it in. because so much of the lab's been built and now the incinerator's finally showing up. But the big thing I've asked of lab staff and Dr. Schmansky is to put that sort of move plan in place and try to get ahead of if there are going to be any service disruptions that we can communicate that well ahead of time, right? So if there's going to be a section lab that has to be down for a day or two because they're in transition, that we've communicated that out to veterinarians well ahead of time so they know that, you know, maybe their samples might for that short period of time is going to get outsourced to another lab, those types of things, and might delay results so that we're communicating and making sure our customers are aware. Or if there's an opportunity for them to hold on to something for an extra day or two before they submit it, often that's not the case. But if that was a possibility, it could. But just, you know, making sure that people know, you know, if there's going to be any service disruptions as that move is taking place. So we'll be looking for that document and sharing that with you. And then you heard our date of possession right now is May 26th. I have reached out to the university about a ribbon cutting. Laura Wilson, I was in contact with her this week. And so she has sent me a list of dates that President Tessman and Dean Bajwa are available. But then the magic is finding dates that they're available, the governor's available, all the key stakeholders are available. So that's a nightmare that is will be coming up. But hopefully someday in June, some nice Bozeman day in June, we will be celebrating the opening of the lab.
All right. You know, Mr. Spatz is on up next, human resources.
I was just thinking, not this last update, but the one before that. You had a phrase in there that the incinerator's coming, we put that feelers in there. We got a lab, we got an incinerator, what are we doing here?
Yeah. All right.
Morning. Onward and upward.
That's right. Morning. That's right. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thanks for having me. I'm Mike Spatz, the HR officer for the Department of Livestock. We'll get you caught up on some HR related metrics, and I'll throw a quick shout out to Mr. Honeycutt for in his discussion about the Ag Labor Summit. Listening through the Zoom, it almost sounded like a really good like a recruitment commercial. That came through. that worked really well.
I'm still selling.
Thank you. Let's see. We'll dive right in and talk about some of the staff openings and recruitment that we got going on.
Business last time.
Oh, yeah.
You have last meetings.
We
HR
do.
update.
Oh,
Okay.
that's what.
Are these in the
No, but yeah, but it's right in the.
Oh, it's in the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
the book is correct. But
So let me go over. I think what's happening there is maybe I clicked on the wrong meeting. I got it from I actually went to our website. Maybe I shouldn't be trusting our website.
Send it to you and I got it all.
Let me make sure I got the right.
More AI on the website.
Yeah. All right.
Well, ready to go back to Canada.
This is probably more of the right document. So there you go. I think I'm right.
yeah, this looks warmer. Yeah.
You know, all the way back up. There we go.
Nice catch.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good job.
Thank
You
you.
are on it.
There we go. There it is. Yeah.
Just the water.
She had a nap. She had a nap.
I did have a nap all day.
That's why you didn't respond to that.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thanks, Mike. So look at we had 2 new hires since the last board meeting, both in the markets there, Billings and Sydney. We had 1 vacated position. I guess I'll go back and say we had 2 new hires, but we also have 3 accepted offers of people that are be coming on here actually as soon as next week, and then out a little bit. But we have our Ramsey Market an offers going out for that today, a formal offer. We have an accepted offer by a sanitarian for the sanitarian position starting next Wednesday.
Sorry, real quick clarification. That was Job's old position, so like the Bozeman area.
That's correct. Yeah. And then we have a IT support position that accepted offer. They'll be starting on Monday. So we've got some positions that have been filled. So let's see. We had the department. There was some notices of resignation. The list here said 0, but we actually have at the update. We have three that came in after I sent this material into Donna. So we have a milk control position that'll be vacated on March 6th, and a part-time egg grader position that'll be vacated on March 6th as well. Those are retirements. And then we have a District 14 investigator in Mr. Bodner's world. That's the Cascade County, Northern Lewis and Clark, and Teton County areas that is vacating as well. So that was a career choice move there.
And the other two were retirements.
Retirements, yep. And then we can jump ahead. Our numbers there says 8 positions that we're actively recruiting for. I see in good fashion I've got Ramsey on there twice, which doesn't need to be on there anymore. So that one will come off the list anyways. But that number is actually, we're looking at 9 positions because we've added our job in CSD. It's the administrative purchasing technician job that vacated recently. We've got that posted out there, taking applications. And then we have that, we'll have a part-time egg grader position posted today, this afternoon. So. And then just some of the staffing position highlights. Always like to give you a shout out and a welcome to our 2 new market inspectors there. But we got Spencer and Matt joined us, both started on February 9th, same day, but joined us in the Sydney and Billings areas. So glad to have them. Other highlights, just basically probably the lab is getting in the second round of interviews for the section head veterinarian microbiologist position. So got some really good applicants there, starting to screen for their pathologist positions. So hopeful that, we get those specialty positions filled here shortly, but they're diligently working on that. And then we come to put the board to work a little bit today, but an action item. We are looking at a request to hire for a public relations officer position. So this is a position that, my personal opinion as well is assistant, accurate, consistent, timely messaging for the department, getting us out in avenues that we're not currently sending out messaging and information in, things like that. But and then keeping us current with what's approved with the department for messaging is not just us, but even the state of Montana. What they would approve as far as messaging, what's appropriate. So it wouldn't create a new position. So we have vacant positions that we can use to fill that. We're looking at some of the nuances of that, what's the best position to put them into, some of the older positions, things like that. But we do have those. The market range is between $69,000 to $103,000 a year. Looking at state average data, we'd be looking at about $76,000 a year to pay a talented person that could handle this job. And then, we got the draft job description should be in materials. If you have any questions on that, I'm glad to talk through those.
William.
So, Mr. Chair, so you're saying you said it's not a new hire.
Or it would be a new hire, but it wouldn't be a new creation of a position. We wouldn't be adding an FTE a position.
So basically, you'll be eliminating a couple positions to make up for that one.
Yeah, there are positions that we have positions that have been vacant within the department for a while that we probably should even look at filling. So at some point. So.
And one other thing, you kept mentioning messaging. Define messaging. What do you mean?
Well, it could vary, but I think there's a lot of through animal health things that go out, events that are coming up, relevant information with the department. I actually, Tawny's in here, or Brand, so I'd even bring them up to say what exactly they envision.
Miss Anderson's the one that made us really think about this.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, when I first saw it, I was like, is someone already doing this? Do we really need the position? And then I read the job description and I was like, oh my God, yes, we do really need this. Does this mean we get an Instagram finally and we're relevant in the world? Yeah, okay.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah,
all the stuff.
perfect. Okay.
I gotta get it in the correct history again. Damn kids anyway.
Mr. Chair, I'll provide some history that some of you will probably remember. The department had a public information officer, public relations officer once upon a time. My understanding of what I was always told, that was before my time, that person was not performing very well. The board at that time chose to do a reduction in force and just riff the position versus, and I guess staff too, versus doing what you would do when employees are failing and moving them on and then going and getting a better person. So it's almost a very similar to the attorney position was a very similar thing that happened in the department's history before that. So we got the attorney, and I'd say we've learned from reestablishing the attorney position that beyond the job description, there's a lot of things that we learned that we didn't even know. You know, it's like, oh, and now I remember the conversation about will we have enough to keep someone busy? I think Miss Simon would tell you that she stays very, very busy. You know, because there's just, you know, when you don't have it, you don't know, right? There's things you don't know. But on this position right now, I would say, how are we getting these things done? It is a team effort. So if we have a brucellosis, you know, positive and we have to do a press release, I'm looking back there, Miss Kalizak, Dr. Kalizak is writing a press release as a veterinarian. She's writing a press release. She's sending that press release to me. I'm editing it. I'm the one that's actually sending it out to all the news media. And we one time had a Facebook, but it became unmanageable because it was no one's permanent job, and you put stuff out there, somebody's got to be watching what's happening and responding to what's happening. And we just quit using it because we couldn't keep up with it. It would, you know, would snowball on us, or there'd be things that we needed to be monitoring what was being said on there, or people would post questions to it and we didn't have time to monitor and answer those questions. And that kind of hurts you reputationally when, you know, the business owners here would say if somebody asks a question and no one ever responds to it because you're counting on one of 3 or 4 people to catch it and have the time to answer it in the course of their other job. So that's why we quit kind of doing that, but we need to do that. You know, you see other agencies using a platform called Constant Contact to send newsletters and things out. We could probably do much more with that if we had someone focused on that. We could even be getting a weekly newsletter out to our constituents that they could sign up for about what's happening with the department, so we could be communicating more directly and more in real time with stakeholders about what's going on in the department. The other thing I think we're missing, and that I would say that is that everything that, if you notice, everything we do in the department is usually very, on a public scale, is very reactive. It's because something has happened. We found feral swine about to escape, or we found swine about to escape, and we dealt with it, and then we publicized it. Or, you know, we've got a brucellosis positive, or we've got an EAI positive. So very, very reactive. And I would want this person to be sort of snooping around the department, working with all of us to see what type of proactive messaging we could have out. So one of the things I saw the other day that's perfect for this, that I was talking to both Jay and Dr. Shemansky about, I saw where North Dakota had put out a big press release to exhibitors about, hey, as fair exhibitors, 4-H, these are animal health requirements, these are branch requirements, these are things you need to know. And we've just not been poised to do that sort of proactive communication. So that's just one example. I'm sure many things this person would find of how do we communicate about about what the DSA is versus it's always a press release about something that's happened in the DSA versus why do we have this program? Why it's important? What does it do for producers? So that's one of the things I think we're holding the line reactively, but we're not being very proactive in how we communicate to our constituents. And this person should help us do that. And I bet that all the things we think they would do today, they will uncover all kinds of things we never thought of that we could be doing, should be doing, to make sure that we're getting good information to our constituents.
Correct. Yeah.
Did you have a question, Greg?
Well, I've got thousands of them. But it sounds good. I mean, do you see this person as being more kind of doing some of the face of the organization instead of you having to bounce all over the place? They're going to do some of these meetings and kind of handle a lot of it.
Yes, they would be helpful in that front. Or even one of the things that is that. So I'll give you an example. I run into Tom Schultz from Voices of Montana recently. And he's like, "Oh, we need to have you on to talk about these things." And I have that conversation and I walk away from that meeting But here's a person who could take that, be like, okay, I'm going to make that happen. Like, I'm going to reach out to Northern Broadcasting. I'm going to reach out to Tom, and I'm going to set this up. We need to get Dr. Shemansky on to talk about this. We need to get Mike on to talk about this. We need to get Jay on, or we need to get a board member on to do this. So yes, they could also, they're doing that background stuff, but they would also be a person who could be out at meetings. And right now, there's probably a lot of meetings that we don't have anyone at that it would be good to have someone at, but it's just, not the time. It's not a focus, right? So we concentrate on the big ones. But should we have had anybody at the Mate Show or the Maggie Show, or should we have? Maybe we should have, but we didn't. We've got a presence at the Nile because we're doing brand inspections, but should we have a presence at the Nile that's not just about doing brand inspections, that is to communicate with all the people that are showing up there. So I say yes. I would hope that they would be out there and helping us show up in more places than we currently can, with it being one little piece of other people's
And they
job.
would be stationed here in Helena.
Yes, that would be our intent.
Any other question?
Not a question, just a comment.
Go for it.
Good job. I think this is needed. I think it's been needed for a very long time. And I think if we find the right person, it will help constituents around the state understand what we do as a department, because I don't think half of the people even know. I mean, they don't hear about it. They don't hear about DOL unless it's something bad or something negative. A plant suspended, brucellosis, TB. That's the only time we're in the news or out in front of people is when it's something bad. And I think, yes, there's the weekly animal health updates, which are great, but people don't open emails like they did 10 years ago.
It's too many.
There's too many. And I know my dad is 70 years old and he gets half of his info off Facebook. And that's not talking about the people my age, the younger producers getting started. I sort through my emails and open the important ones usually for Mike. A lot of the other ones I don't even look at. And so to have somebody out there that could be putting positive information out and negative, I think it's not 100% positive, but let them know, what's going on, why it's going on. But then, a day later, have something positive out there. It's going to give us a better look, to our constituents and I think help everybody have a more positive view of the Department of Livestock. So,
Mr. Chairman, I don't know about you guys, but when I do a meeting or something, one of the main comments is, I didn't know you guys covered all that stuff. That's usually, they just don't have a clue what we do up here. So I think it'd be really good.
You get a comment, Lily?
I was just dittoing Jake. Very excited about this, and I feel that it's much needed. So.
And I'll second you also. It's a good.
I don't know if you want to tap on Mr. Curry and see if he's got
You have a
something else to
comment?
say.
I know some of this new technology is hard for you, but.
He's talking.
I finally could get unmuted here. My, I'm on my iPad and it does different things than I think it should. I just look at it as an opportunity to be proactive instead of reactive to news. You just think about all the positive information that we did get out of our that feral swine situation up there in Phillips County up on the milk, but we could have gotten a lot more really positive information for our department and for the whole livestock industry, how we are in front of things like that, so that people aren't sitting at a coffee shop talking about, well, I heard somebody said there was feral swine up in the Sweetgrass Hills, and oh my gosh, that's going to be devastating. We can show how fast we can react and get that news out, us putting the press out instead of someone else putting the press out and us trying to correct it or mainly correct some of the false statements. So I just I agree. I think it's a good idea and I don't know whether, Mr. Chairman, if you're gonna call for the vote, but I'll just stay on here until you do.
Hey, well, we need a motion first.
I make a motion, we proceed with hiring a public relations officer for the Board of Livestock.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Greg, second by Lily to, hire a PR person for the Department of Livestock. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Before you move on, I'll give thanks. She's not here today, but Dr. Shemansky, she wanted this so bad. She was willing to give us a vacant FTE out of the animal health department to do this. They've done a good job through the years with the staffing on the import office and some other things. And so they had been able to decrease by one, and she did not have any intention to rehire it. But when she heard about this, she was like, please take my position. Please make this happen. So.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm personally excited to have the monthly Meet the Board campaign where you'll get a biography. It's in the spotlight a little bit. So
A day with the board.
there you go. There you go. And then I guess just lastly, as another general update, we talked about the year-end performance evaluations for months as we went through those. Final data was pulled on January 31st, and it, unless I'm missing something wild, we're at 100% completion rate. So everybody participated in that process.
Guys.
And so, yeah, good job to all management and staff out there. So that was a great.
Not that I'm competitive, but last time on the mid-years, we had the highest percentage completion rate of any department in the state, and I wanted to retain our title.
Yeah, we were in the 90s then, I think. So
Yeah.
It was a tough.
We'd missed a
They
couple
pulled
on
through,
mid-years, but we got
Yeah.
everybody on the.
Do you want me to do one so we're at 101%? That way,
Yeah.
nobody can beat us.
How many vacant FTEs do we have now?
Oh, I can get that number for you. I just looked at it, but
Okay,
it's
just curiosity.
yeah, a lot of them are. We have some reserves for like seasonal, short-term workers and stuff like that, and some of them are a 0.25 a quarter position and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's fair to say there's probably 8 in each in animal health and brands that are just kind of sitting there and been sitting there for a while. Yeah, there's maybe a little more, but those are recurrent vacancies and stuff too. So.
I think I can get there quick because I just got the quarterly update from our fiscal analyst over the legislature, and he usually puts a chart in there because there's some I don't even think about because there's little parts and pieces that we haven't figured out why we even have them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, we just because there's like these 0.1s and
Exactly.
things of that nature. So there's the list. So grand total is I'm gonna blow that up for you a little bit, Greg. So grand total you'll see there's 22. Now when I say we have 14 or whatever, it's because I know there's 8 that we're not even planning to fill.
Yeah.
So I give a true up number of what we're actually planning to fill. But you can see some of those you'll see. So like the IT systems that's about to go away because we're about to hire that person. Purchasing tech, that's out for hire right now. But you can see and say it's only been vacant 0.7 of a month, but you can see some of these. So we have a compliance tech and animal health. I think that's where this position is coming from, if I'm not mistaken. And it's been open for 21 months. We had a program manager in animal health that we hadn't figured out what that program manager was, but I think that's on the milk side. It was the 38 months.
I think it's in the lab.
It's in the lab. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
That's when we got approval to reclass.
Yeah,
2 months ago
okay.
To a microbiologist.
Gotcha. It had been sitting vacant for about 3 years. You see Brands has one that's been vacant for over 2 years, but it's a 0.45. So it's a part of one that could be turned on during fall run or something like that for short term, but that's not happened in the last 2 years. And then the auditor position has been open for 2 years, because we've never filled that position. So we've been auditing markets, but in fact, at one time we talked about Brian, like, did we do some combo position between brands and CSD? Did Brian need some audit, like an audit function person? So that's one that's been systemically vacant. But there you can see what the total count of vacant FTEs are, but hopefully 1, 2, 3, 4, this veterinary supervisor, and then we just hired the sanitarian. That sanitarian one is that, yeah.
That's good.
So there's 5 that are in process of being hired, and on the, so it brings it back down, but that's kind of where we run.
Yeah.
But we've got that short-term worker for Lewistown, 0.15. I mean, and so that basically means they can work about 300 hours, right? If we need it, it's there, and I don't know why it's tied specifically to Lewistown, but but we did turn it on probably back during fall run at some point, because it's only been vacant for 6.2 months. So
So you basically don't advertise these jobs so much with the long vacancies.
yeah, they've just been positions that we haven't needed, right? Or didn't fill, or we didn't have the budget to rehire. Because for a while, you don't see it anymore, but for milk, Ms. Anderson would know, like, until we finally got some more budget support, there were some positions there that were tied to the milk program that had been vacant for 2 or 3 years. Because when people retired, we just didn't rehire anyone because there wasn't budget to rehire someone. But we didn't let the positions go away. We knew one day we would either get back the budget to rehire, or like we just did, we would take it and repurpose it for some other need the department has, so we don't have to go to the legislature and ask for a new FTE.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
So we just keep them in our back pocket.
Use it for leverage, I guess.
Well, and they also, it's called, then the legislature, the vacancy savings thing, so then we have a little wiggle room that, so we don't lose critical people.
And I get a little nervous sometimes that's why I say we kind of look at them, because if they sit for too long and we don't do anything with them, there's a chance, or at least in my mind, that someone could say, hey, you guys aren't using those for the last 3 years. We don't need those anymore. So it's good to fill them if we need them. Yeah. So and that's all I got for you today.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Spatz? Okay.
You're out of the hot seat.
So, we want to take
15 minutes is good.
take a break and come back at 10.
Okay.
So how was the Super Bowl?
And got the recording going again. You're good to go, Mr. Chair.
Well, meeting back to order. Next is, fiscal bureau. Brian, let's have at it.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Brian Simonson, your Chief Financial Officer. You have glasses. We're gonna go on tab 2, the white tab. We're gonna be on page 1. We're gonna look at state special revenue. I think I'll spend more time on livestock loss board today than I will on the budget numbers. Okay. We're 6 to 7 months worth of revenue. You're looking at January 31st numbers. We'll just kind of go down the numbers here. Brands, the blue cart. Field inspection, everything above field inspections looks pretty good. Field inspections, row 6. Month of January, we closed the gap pretty good there. We're down still 7,000 compared to last year, but that's certainly well within tolerances. And given when you look down at market inspections and when we kind of look at the number of cattle that have gone through there, it kind of might explain why we're a little down on field inspections, because the number looks, slightly up through the market. So, yeah, those numbers did over double last month compared to what they did the month before, for the month last year. So we're a positive 47,488. I don't think it's a big worry, but just for the month or for the year, that's about 55% of the budget. And with fall run kind of concluded, you'd think we're should be a little higher than that if we were gonna meet our budget goal of 1.5 million for the year. So I think we'll see when we look at the projections that we're gonna have a lot of excess authority, so that's not really a concern for this year, but maybe somewhere down the road, we'll have discussions about revenue streams and brands. Just moving down the chart here, investment earnings are down 51,000. Evan's got a note down there. You can kind of compare that we're 3.96% versus 4.51% earnings rate for our STIP investments. So, and then our actual amount of money invested is quite a bit less also. So that explains how you get to those. We're losing about 7,000 comparatively to last year a month in earnings growth year over year. All right, I think that pretty much explains the brands. Other revenue typically is when when brands are turning in old vehicles and selling them. So they must have done that this time last year. They turned in some trucks and got some revenue for them. In the green sheets, per capita fee collections will really start in earnest on March 1st. That's when everybody's due to pay their bills. But obviously, we did collect $829,000 per capita fee in the month of January. That's up about 9.6% from what we did this time last year. 3% of that's going to be the rate increase that you all approved back in September, just for your recollection. So currently, you can see we're 59,000 ahead of where we were this time last year. All that looks good. Okay. Milk inspections, that number looks about right. Just for your awareness, we have really only about 30, grade A dairy producers of any size in the state. There's probably half a dozen more smaller ones, but those are the main producers. So that number's shrinking regularly. So that's what it is. Egg grading, we're short still. We're behind one deposit there. Otherwise, that number would be positive. So no worries there. It'll jump up. Lab fees, that number is down 11.6% for the year. You can see they're 103,000 short of what they were last year. 45% of their budget so far. We talked to Greg yesterday. He is saying they are seeing less testing. He's speculating, he and Tanya, that the mild winter is probably contributing to less testing in the lab, and so that's what they're pinning it on this year, or at least for the month of December and January. And then Wolf donation funds didn't move at all for this last month, so nobody's buying hunting license.
But we're about to get into the period where
we'll start into that
this-
March 1st. They
Yeah,
start
start
really
with
doing
that.
hunting license.
Any questions on state special revenue?
I mean, look over, make sure we see if Gene's got a question. Not coming off business.
Looking very intently.
It looks like he did move outside though to enjoy that 95-degree weather.
You better stay inside and put on the AC.
Too bad he didn't hear that one.
Yeah, we're gonna, page 2. Mike, could you kind of just go down to the very bottom and then we'll jump up to the top after I start. All right, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on here this time. I'm just gonna try to point out the obvious. Let's start at the bottom far right and look and see that our budget projections show that we're going to be $957,669 of excess authority by the end of the year. I've been here 6+ years. I've never seen that number at this time. If you look at all of those budgeted fund numbers from row 26 on down, outside of the federal shell egg $18,000 budget that's showing a little $4,000 negative, I've never seen all positives in the budget for all those categories. So Yeah, why? Let's pop up to personnel services. Okay, so that number in column F on row 5 says that we're gonna have $801,143 of excess personnel services authority by the end of the year. Where's that at? Well, it's in, the lab's got 192,000, the meat and poultry inspection's got 168,000, brands has got 134,000. Animal health's got 106,000, and livestock loss board's got 64,000. So, and like maybe I missed milk there with milk and egg with 151,000. So it's across the board outside of centralized services and milk control. Like those are the only 2 programs that are running a little bit in the red or normal. We've had a lot of vacancies. We have a lot of, before I leave it, I'll just say, I think probably we're a little aggressive. It's kind of like the weather. If things have been, if we've had vacancies over the past 4 months, we kind of expect vacancies to continue for the next 4 months, but we know that's not true. We just sat here and listened to Mr. Spatz tell you that we're hiring people and that's happening. So I think that number will improve by the end of the year, but I could probably make a case for why operations, $264,000 to the good is going to get better. That number is going to increase between now and the end of the year because the month of January was really light on spending operations. And in our budget talks with the programs yesterday, everybody seems to be implying that trend is going to continue for the next 4 or 5 months. So, yeah, so we're trying to think of some things to spend some authority on before the end of the year.
Yeah, so one of the, the silver lining there of what we might be able to do if those numbers continue to hold is we have, shared with staff that if there are things that we need versus going to EPP and making them decision packages, if this number holds for a couple more months, if we can go ahead and do those things now within this budget, let's go ahead and get them done versus holding them over to ask the legislature for them later. And so there could be a trade-off there of some things that we were thinking, capital type purchases, one-time only capital type purchases.
Phase replacement computer purchases instead of doing them next year.
Yeah, and then that way that sort of takes some of the air out of the balloon of what we may have to have as budget request to the legislature. And one of the reasons for that being important, I'll say is that, and I probably should have mentioned it during my time this morning, is I heard it on the news driving in this morning. I'm sure all of you have heard it. It's not a secret now. The governor has gone out public with his plan for taxes for this next biennium, and he does want to move the state towards a flat income tax. Analysts say that would reduce state revenues by $100 million. I don't know if that's accurate or not. That's just what the news is reporting. So that's why we've been asked to be, especially general fund, tight with requests. And so the more we can take the air out of the balloon of what we ask for in this next biennial budget, the better. So if we do, we won't squander that opportunity if we have excess authority. But I also say that, we have to be mindful that that's an anomaly. If we'd have been at full employment on the vet micro position, if we'd been full employment in brands, some of these systemic market vacancies he's had, then that number wouldn't be where it is. It's
animal health veterinarians weren't fully employed.
Weren't fully employed all year. They hopefully will be next year. All those positions filled at their rate of pay. So that is a 1-year thing. It's not something I think is going to be a continuing trend.
But by doing, we've had a major budget surplus the last three sessions or 2 sessions or whatever. And, you might as well, if you give it to them, they spend it. So you want to cut it back.
Well, and I do think they've had some pretty generous inflationary numbers that they've pushed on the budgets the last couple of sessions. So it isn't surprising that our operational budgets are a little higher than showing some excess authority for sure.
I've always been a proponent of flat deck myself.
I don't think ink toner cartridges have gone up.
Yeah, that was not a political statement.
It was not.
That's what's gonna happen, so we need to work in context of that.
Moving on to the brown sheets, page 12. I'm not gonna spend too much time here. They're a little bit less optimistic or comparative to last year. They're a little closer to the mark. So total personnel services, row 5, year to year, column E. We're doing $146,000 better this year than we did last year. That's due to vacancies this year and a lot of overtime and payouts last year. And then that number would be even better if, right now we've realized about 150,000 of the pay increases if we were at full employment. Over, our 2.5% or percent pay increases that we experienced July 1st. So, yeah, so that's the number there compared to last year. Maybe a couple numbers that stand out. Contracts, row 7, 52,000 better than last year. That's mostly about less testing in the DSA this year. Supplies, almost 63,000 more. That's Brands has actually spent more in supplies comparatively to last year. That's where that number is kind of coming from. 42,000 for repair and maintenance, row 13, 42,615. That's the new lab preventive maintenance. They got some new equipment a couple years ago, but the warranty ran out, so their preventive maintenance kicked in, I think, for about that amount of money. And that was in an EPP request in the last legislative cycle. Row 21, depredation remediation, that's the Livestock Loss Board. We're spending what is excess in their operation budget for personnel services and that, so that's why that's 97,000 over what they spent last year. They really have a $150,000 budget for House Bill 2, but we've spent, like you can see there, 245,000 in claims. That's going to generate more leftover claims money. About 328,000 is their balance right now to get us to June 30th, which they're not going to spend very much of that between now and then. So they're looking really good again. And then lastly, that 88,000 for transfers, that's earlier elk collaring that charges than last year. You can see last year we only had 37,000 in that number for row 24. And I'm not gonna, all the number anomalies in the budgeted funds are reflective of what I've just gone over there, so I'm just gonna skip over that. So that's the report there. If you turn the page, there was no increases at all, and actually our expenditures kind of went down in this category. They have a tendency to move things around quite a bit in these budget amendments and federal dollars that come in. So there's really been nothing happening on this page this last month. So I don't have anything to report. And that is my budget status report. Was that 10 minutes?
William,
15.
Very good, Jerry. I have a question for you. On the depredation funds, you said,
yeah.
So if, like with cattle prices this year, they're more expensive than they are last year, does that follow that, or does the cattle, does that stay the same? Like the value of the animal?
Yeah, no, we're paying the market price. So they're getting 2,000 to 20. I mean, we've got to go, most of the claims, we're back in May, June, July. So I think the prices were 2,000. I think you got some that were pushing 2,500 for some things. So, but compared to last year, I would say that was, $500 more than last year. So we've had less claims, but for more money this year. So whatever the market's doing, that's what we're paying.
I probably forgot it already, but
you can, when you go to tab 3, there's a really nice chart where she doesn't, so you can see, 2025, we haven't had any 2026 claims. But you can see that 2024 is quite a bit above, but the number of claims were much more. Yeah, we don't have the total number of claims for 2024. I can tell you, we had 230 claims for 2025 so far. I should get the number for how many claims for 2025. It's a tough thing to look at total number of claims because in any given year, you could have a lot of sheep go down versus, number of cattle, and they really start to skew the total number of claims versus or price per claim.
Almost got like the total dollars.
Yeah,
So another
and
question,
this chart shows total dollars.
why aren't coyotes included in that? Did they kill more than the grizzlies and anybody else though?
They're not a hunted species, they're not an endangered species, they're not a regulated species. They're considered predators.
Berman.
Still, if there's a loss, there's a loss.
You would never get that through the legislature because it would wipe every dollar out.
The concept being with coyotes, you have a much more freer hand to solve your problems versus these other species that, particularly grizzly bears, which are endangered, but the managed species that have their own seasons and times and just are a little bit more difficult to deal with than coyotes. Coyotes, if you've got backs of coyotes that are problems, you can do what you need to do.
Yeah, I had a producer called me, lost quite a few calves due to coyotes, and it's just,
I've got two.
You ought to.
There's a lot of them around. When Dalen gets on, I'm gonna see if he wants to come fly by us. There's a pile of them.
We don't have any at the moment, and I don't know why. I hear them now and then, but
We never did for years. I think people were coming out of Bozeman and hunting them and calling them in the winter. And I think that was kind of a fad for a while, and there's nobody that hunts them by us anymore. I mean, there used to not be a coyote anywhere because so many people were coming out for fun and calling them in. But I don't get calls anymore. People wanting to do it, and I just don't think anybody's doing it. So the population's just increased a lot.
Gut pile and thermals, wonderful.
That's what I'm gonna buy next. That's my next investment. A thermal and a silencer.
so are you done with your predator one too?
I know,
But it sounds like there's a segue.
I think I had looked at, I think I had looked at the agenda and Dalen was supposed to be first, but I don't see him on the call.
No, he's not on yet, but we'll just keep moving, and when he gets on, we'll entertain him. And I've went to check my email to make sure it wasn't, he had sent me a report or something because he wasn't going to be here, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll continue with the livestock loss board report. Leslie writes here that, let's see. I think she says just refer to the table. Since the last Board of Livestock meeting, Livestock Loss Board has paid livestock loss claims for 4 producers for 6 losses. Okay. Anyway, if you're scrolling the maps, you can see we have the maps. I think the first 2 maps are just FYI. They're on the webpage for people to look at. They're pretty informative if, when you want to look at your own county by species and total. The third one, and I correct myself, I said by dollar figures, but those are by actual losses. So that's about 230 losses is what that number is. So cumulative depreciation is what it says in the top left corner. And then she gives you the last one. She gives you the losses for the month of January. So you can see there's a total of 7 livestock owners put in claims for 12 losses totaling $17,520. Since our last meeting, the board or the livestock loss board met on Monday. I believe I heard Mike tell you they approved 9 grants for a total of $121,000, which left them with $259,000 for grants that they're going to meet on May 12th to award. So they'll be publishing another grant cycle here for pretty much the month of April, that'll open for. So that's good. What else do I want to say? During the meeting, they approved, 3 new, rule, procedure or, rules.
Rulemaking efforts.
Yeah,
Start the
rulemaking
process.
efforts, to go forward with. So they're gonna put a deadline for, filing the claim of February 1st for the previous year. They're, these all have to go, over to the governor's office for approval. So these are all just drafts and tentative.
And then have to go through the Secretary of State's process.
Yes.
Come back.
So, but,
They get approved.
this will be the first rulemaking we do for, the livestock law sport. So, exciting times as far as I'm concerned. They're also approving, that, there's a appeal process, for if you file a claim and you don't like what the amount you got paid. In that appeal process, it's all about how often, how soon the livestock law sport has to get back to you. But there's nothing in there about, let's see here. A producer may appeal a staff adjustments loss, within 60 days of the staff adjuster's decision. So there's no criteria for how long you have to submit your appeal. So that's the new rule that has been approved in that regards. And then the last one is, once paid, loss reimbursements are final and may not be adjusted except through the appeal process. So that's going to stop some habits or some processes that we've had in the past of people submitting for, hey, what about this? And so they'll slow that down. And there hasn't been a lot of that, but it hasn't been codified in rule, and so it's kind of wishy-washy as to what the policy is there. So that's that. And then they approved 3 legislative proposals. They might be actually budgetary adjustments and less about legislative language, but they propose adding eagles to the predatory loss list. They might expand that language. I think it's to actually migratory birds.
It's
Predatory migratory birds.
Yeah, things covered under the Migratory Bird Act. So that would include eagles, vultures. Ravens are not under the Migratory Bird Act.
They are, but
No,
they're
they
not
are.
predators.
They're not predators.
Yeah.
Yes,
So I think it's the Migratory Bird Act.
so I think they're expanding it to cover all
You can
those.
ask where you get the vulture.
Yeah, all those things covered by the Migratory Bird Act, which really restricts what producers can do about the problem.
They accepted proposed language of adding donkeys and alpacas. They already pay for, the associated species, llamas and mules and horses. So it's kind of just a missed thing there. So that's good going forward. And then maybe a little bit more controversial, they also approved in a tightly contested vote to add $100,000 of general fund to wildlife services for their investigation efforts. And kind of that they every year in July they approve what the maximum amount they can to send to wildlife services to help them in that effort. And they do a lot of work for the livestock loss and all those claims, and they never, at the beginning when it was just wolves, they didn't ask for anything, and they're not asking for anything now. But the amount of work that they're doing has multiplied quite a bit over the years. So we're just trying to make that now something that's stable going forward, instead of something that kind of cyclically goes perpendicular to when they actually have more work and less work. So $100,000.
Yeah. And that would be $100,000 in new general fund, and they got the speech about where we are in the budget, and just so that expectations are set that will be going forward to the governor's office. That'll be up to the governor's office now to decide whether that makes it to the governor's budget or not, but they voted to move it forward. So
we might be able to find some magic. So.
Well, and that's the thing. We will, again, just like we talked about before, there with some of because for one, on livestock loss board, now that don't have a full-time person.
Exactly.
We got a half-time person. There's some savings within their administrative budget that there might be room to cover some of those things they want without having to do new requests, so,
They could put more in the budget.
but, yeah. So,
Mr. Chair, that's my livestock loss board report.
Any other questions for Ryan on livestock loss, budget, whatever?
Gene,
Good.
see Gene coming off mute, so he must be good.
Gene, have a question?
Nope, he didn't come off mute, so he must be good.
Okay.
And we don't have Mr. Tidwell yet, but, we are well ahead of, we're an hour ahead of, going to lunch, so.
Good meet.
Yeah, so, I would leave it to, I know Tawny's out there listening now, but, I don't know who would be available first, but if Miss Love was available and she wanted to come. Yeah, herself.
I can walk down. Just give me a second.
Okay, so Alicia's gonna be here and we'll see how long she takes and then we'll see if Dalen pops in. If he does, we'll entertain him and.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll keep.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian.
We'll keep.
Mr. Simonson.
We'll keep forging ahead.
I used to be moving.
As long as I have a second, I would just like to pass some credit on to Tom Schultz in our IT department. He's done a lot of ADA work on the website. It Mike tried to give me all the credit. And
Well.
I'm not taking it. Tom gets a bunch.
Here's an interesting tidbit for you on the wolves. The neighbor got one the other day, and it started out in Grand Teton, south of Grand Teton, traveled all around Park County, northern Park County, southern Park County, back almost to the Teton up and then back into the Paradise Valley.
Yeah,
This was in the last, like in 2 months.
we had wolves in our hayfield, which we never
One
had.
wolf. It was, I mean,
How many miles did he travel?
he didn't tell me the total, but I saw there was another one that there was a mountain lion that started in South Dakota, the Black Hills, and he got hit by a car in New Hampshire. It was collared, and that's where they got hit by a car there.
I think it was lost or something.
Yeah,
But they don't move around at all.
before we leave that topic, I would say, I would say an interesting tidbit of one of the things that Brian didn't mention, but you reminded me of it, that was interesting from the Livestock Loss Board meeting, is that they had a big discussion on one of their grants because it was dealing with someone trying to safeguard themselves against potential wolf depredations, and the grant was from Wolf Point, Montana. And so there was a big conversation about, and Craig Glazier from Wildlife Services was on, and we talked about how while there might not be established packs, they're from Canada and other places, there are singular wolves or wolves that move through that area, and that they had probable kills in that area. And I think that was interesting for the Livestock Loss Board to wrap their head around that, they had gotten a grant request based on wolf predations from Wolf Point, and how this has been largely, their program has largely been a western third of the state program, but we are starting to see some of those needs expanding to the east.
Okay. Ms. Love, you're on.
Good morning. I almost said good afternoon. It's been afternoon. Good morning, board. My name is H. Love. I'm the Meat Milk and Egg Inspection Bureau Chief. Just a couple of items for your consideration today. First up, I'm asking for permission to send some folks to a couple of different meetings. We're officially in conference season again. So first is requesting permission for me to attend the Ohio Environmental Health Association Conference. I've been asked to speak at this conference, but I'm also hoping to gain some additional knowledge. There's some pretty relevant topics on the food safety end of the world that I think would be beneficial. This organization that is hosting the event is offering to pay for all of my travel there and back and the hotel accommodations. So it is just your permission for paying me to attend is what is needed here.
Okay. William.
I'll make a motion to send speech I love to hire.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded, moved by William, second by Lily to send Alicia to the Ohio Environmental Health Association meeting. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next up is a request for me to send two staff to the ASMID conference. This is the Association of State Meat Inspection Directors. This is a conference that we attend every May or June, depending on when they post it. This is specific to our meat program. I will probably not be attending this because it falls in the second week of our on-site audit, but I am hoping to send two of my meat supervisors to this meeting. There's two auditors, so I figure the most places they can be is in two of my circuits. But I'm hoping to send some staff. We'll be doing, part of that conference at a university to talk about drying of meat without heat treatment and how to prove whether or not that is safe or not. So I think that would be really beneficial for us. And that would come out of my meat inspection budget.
And this is a conference that we typically have two people attend. It's something we've done in the past or do every year.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the travel to the ASMID conference.
1 second.
It's been moved by Jake, seconded by William to send the people to the ASMID conference in May. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Gordon. And then I think I've got one more. Yes. I would like to send one of my sanitarians to an advanced milk processing course that is hosted by the FDA. This would be covered by our FDA training grant. So the travel and the cost of the class is covered through FDA's grant. The only expense to my program would be this Job's time there. With Job being placed into his supervisory role, he needs additional training to become our rating officer for the state. And this is kind of part of that process of what he needs.
I just have a question, I guess. So he needs this to become the state milk ratings officer? Because when I saw advanced milk processing, I was like, I don't feel like that's super relevant to the current state of dairy.
So part of
Here.
being the rating officer is having so much time in these trainings. So this training specifically, no, but he is supposed to have so much coursework through FDA. He's done quite a bit already. But this is just an additional class, and this was recommended by our milk specialist for him to attend this.
I got a question. Clarification. You said you needed to send one of your sanitarians to this. Is he a sanitarian?
He is still working on that, Mr. Board Member.
When's his test is in May?
So, this class is supposed to occur in May. I think based on our previous conversation, I would hope that that would be wrapped up by then.
Okay.
So we need a motion for this.
Or you move on because there's no motion. Or you move on because there's no motion.
Well, I just wanted to, I mean, if we're gonna do it, we need a motion. So. I'm not getting any motions, so.
And you come off mute, so you're good.
Did he come off mute?
No.
Then. Okay, so let's move to the next one.
The last item for your consideration today is a proposed amendment to one of my meat arms. The reason why we are looking at this today is currently our state law says that if you are a federal plant, you have a federal granted inspection, you still need to have a license with the state. After a unexpected turn of events on USDA's part, the plant that we had previously had some run-ins with went federal, after we revoked their custom license. And so we were preparing to tell them they needed a license that we just got done revoking from them, because our state law requires that federal plants have a license with us. And we started talking through the logistics of that. And then we asked the question, if a plant has a federal grant of inspection under USDA's authority, why are we demanding that they have a license from us when really our action to do anything to those plants is nothing?
Even so, like if they had the grant of inspection from you, like it wouldn't matter because it's USDA's problem. Is that
correct?
Okay.
So that is the gist of the proposed change here. There are some minor edits in the language, just trying to be compliant with, I'm not sure if it's proper to say the governor's ask, but Montana's asked to simplify legal language when possible. So most of the changes that are kind of scattered throughout is just simplifying language, but the bulk of the ask is that point number 5 there.
Yeah, one of the things we're being asked to do in red tape review is to reduce the reading level on rules. Because there's a lot of the administrative rules of the state of Montana that would require a reading level that's at a graduate school level of reading. So we've been asked to try to get that down as much as possible, close to a 12th grade reading level on the rules. Obviously, we don't want to deal with all of our rules at one time, but I'll probably every rule request that you see come before you in the future, Ms. Simon will have probably, and along with the staff, done some work to try and say the same thing, but reduce that reading level and reduce the complexity of language that's used. So that's why it looks like it's all chopped up, but there's really only one substantive change to the rule.
So it's
And that's the
basically
addition.
the section 5, that's all underlined.
Yes.
Is there a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to accept the rule change on ARM 326702.
Second.
Been moved by Jake, second by Greg, to adopt the new rules on the ARM. 26.702. Any further discussion?
Gene's off mute.
Gene,
Maybe he's just preparing to vote.
okay. All right. Being none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, members of the board. That's all I have for today.
Before Mrs. Love leaves, I met with the state. She's running for the Senate, but she's already there. And I have a feeling there's a bunch of meat bills coming. Mobile slaughter bills and other meat bills. So she kind of gave me the inside track. So just be ready.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Fedez, there appears to be quite a trend of that. As some of you may know, we have a monthly meeting with USDA. All states join a meeting with USDA once a month, and they're already kind of heading off with if you hear of anything that might impact Equal 2 status, if you're hearing anything that could impact your ability to have a state program, please let us know. So I think that is where the trend is right now.
And I believe, is it South Dakota just passed one? One of our neighbors just passed a cooperative agreement law through their legislature that if federal law changes, like we saw in the last session or a couple sessions ago.
Yeah,
So-
that's a really confusing, that's on our books. And of course, that's one thing I constantly get asked about is how many states have joined our cooperative? And I'm like, the law's never been enacted because the federal law hasn't changed.
Yeah.
There's a provision there that if federal law should change, the AG, there's some things the AG does immediately to start codifying that we can enter into co-op state to state. But yeah, it's conditional, but it creates confusion because people think a law passed, but a law didn't really pass.
It passed, but it did.
It passed, but it didn't.
Under contingencies.
Under
Yeah.
contingencies, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pettis, yeah. So I think it's going to unfortunately be a very interesting legislative session.
I do agree.
So those, assuming you're gonna be spending some time in Helena.
If it happens, it happens. I'll make it happen. But I just wanted you to know I have heard some rumblings that there's some stuff coming down the line. So
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any other questions. Otherwise, I'll let you stay well ahead of your schedule.
Anybody? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have Dylan yet?
Let's see if we got Dylan on yet. And like I said, I haven't heard from him. He's not gonna be here, but I do not see him. So Dr. Kalizak is ready to go.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Emily Kalzak, Animal Health Bureau. My updates should be quick today. Mr. Honeycutt already shared our first update, which was just to let you all know again about the results of the elk capture this year. 30 of those elk have GPS collars. So when we start getting data off of those in a year or so, we should have some really good information about elk movements and potential connections to those Wyoming elk that are in that area of concern. My second update is a travel request for Dr. Peterson to attend a training hosted by USDA Center for Veterinary Biologics in Iowa in May. As a state, we have to approve biologic-based veterinary products, so mainly vaccines. Occasionally we get other sort of stem cell-based type treatments requests for approval that all come through our office, and no one has ever really attended the training to find out what the process is like for how CBB reviews those products, and the details we should maybe be considering as we approve them for use in Montana. And so this would be for Dr. Peterson to get that training from USDA.
Okay. Any questions for her? Thank you.
So say somebody comes and wants us to approve biologics, does the Animal Health Bureau make that decision, or who does that go to?
Yeah.
Is that out for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pettis, the Animal Health Bureau, the state veterinarian's office approves those requests. Most often they are for autogenous vaccines that don't have a general license. And so the conditions under which we approve those are, and some of the details that would be helpful for us to have a more complete understanding of the way those products are regulated and work.
So I keep getting a lot of questions all the time about mRNA vaccines in animals. Would mRNAs fall under the biologics, or how?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pettis, I believe yes. If someone wanted approval to use an mRNA vaccine stuck in Montana, it would come through our office.
You're still getting those questions?
Oh,
wow. I haven't gotten that in a long time.
yes, all the time. And accused that we use mRNAs in livestock and nonstop. All of the above.
It must be from where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I'm surprised that we're not getting them too, but we're not, those aren't out in the public as much.
I try to stay out of the public if I can, but they seem to find me.
All right. Is anybody have
Make a motion to approve the travel request.
Second.
moved by Lily, seconded by Jake to approve the travel request to the Veterinary biological training program. Is there any just other discussion? Seeing none, we can vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I did want to add quickly an update on our RFID no-cost tag situation. We were recently able to get some additional white RFID tags. Tennessee did not use their whole allocation and they contacted us to see if we would like them. We happily took all 43,000 that they had available. And so we, just in the last couple of days, mailed white RFID tags to veterinarians doing DSA work. We've heard from many DSA veterinarians about challenges getting replacement tags for when they are testing adult animals. 10 to 20% of those animals come in needing a new tag, and that covering the cost of those tags, it can be a challenge. The way we reimburse for testing does not account for having to place new RFID tags. So we were able to send veterinarians who tested animals for DSA last year, we sent them 20% of the number of animals they tested. We sent them that number of white RFID tags. And so hopefully that will help some of our DSA veterinarians and producers cover those additional tagging expenses that they experience because of brucellosis work.
Great.
Okay, DSA, ignorant person. The white ones are for down there for testing. They use the white, and then the orange is what we use in the rest of the state.
So Mr. Chairman, Mr. Richmond, orange tags should only be placed at the time of calf with brucellosis vaccination.
Okay.
Any adult animal that's having a tag placed for any other purpose, it needs to be a color other than orange.
Okay.
It can be white, yellow. You can order them in kind of any color you would like.
Okay.
Orange are reserved for calf with vaccination. White can be used for any purpose.
Okay.
It's like when we're testing, if we have, say a 4-year-old cow that had an orange, when we bangs vaccinated, she comes in, we test her again, she doesn't have one, they pop a white in her.
Okay.
Or our bulls, we have to test all of our bulls because we're in the DSA.
Mm-hmm.
Bull calves that are going through the sale in a week have to be tested, they get a white.
Okay.
So it's just a difference in why and how they're being used.
I got a bossy yellow one.
Has USDA done anything as far as how they're allocating tags overall yet?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pettis, we are working with a number of other states that have an interest in changing the allocation formula, and have been in contact with ADT staff to get the numbers that they've used previously. I don't know that they have committed to changing their allocation. We are at this point encouraging them to, they have done their allocation based on total cattle numbers, which when you look at what states get how many tags, that heavily favors cattle feeding states that have lots of animals, but animals that are not usually subject to ADT requirements. So we are encouraging them to look at other methods, potentially doing cows and heifers that have calved as the baseline, or other ways of distributing those tags. We don't have any commitment yet, but that's an ongoing conversation, and there are several other states working with us in that effort.
So have you guys, with abnormally warm winter, have you seen any wildlife interaction that you've had to deal with more so than normal? Or?
Mr. Redfield, Mr. Richmond, I don't know that we have specifically. I think the general feeling is that wildlife are in different places this year than they normally are. Mm-hmm. And that certainly, like Mr. Honeycutt reported, it's affected wild bison in the park and what they're doing. And I think there's similar feelings about where elk are, but I don't know that we have a specific measure of that change at this point.
You haven't seen any rabies issues or avian influenza or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Witchman, we had 2 avian influenza cases in January, which is not the time of year that we should have wild birds hanging out in places. Yeah, we certainly are seeing avian influenza cases. FWP is still submitting samples, that they've collected January, February. We're seeing positive birds that we would not normally expect. So yes, we had we have 2 cats under quarantine for exposure to a bat that was found outside on the ground. Bats should not be especially active this time of year. So yes, we definitely are seeing some abnormal wildlife interactions.
One more before she goes. Oh, Williams.
Wait a question.
So I had a question for you. So when you're talking about testing for avian influenza, say 5 years ago, you probably didn't test for that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's to say it wasn't there already versus?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kleinsasser, even in years that we don't have avian influenza outbreaks, Wildlife Services does a large amount of wild bird surveillance. And so we know that even in years that we are not experiencing domestic poultry outbreaks, the wild birds still carry what we consider North American strains of avian influenza at a low level. And so we know that it's always out there to some extent. What has been different the last 4 years now is that the strain the wild birds are carrying is this Eurasian lineage that's much more infectious to domestic poultry and continues to spread in the wild birds at higher levels than we would have expected prior to 2022 outbreak starting.
Okay. Any screwworm update?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vettis, the latest update we got from USDA was that there were 2 new active cases detected in Mexico. The closest was 182 miles south of the Texas border. The fly distribution facility is open in Texas, and they are releasing sterile flies on the U.S. side of the Texas-Mexico border. So they are concerned enough that we have significantly moved where they are releasing those sterile flies. But that 182 miles is the closest active case currently.
Okay. And Dalen, Mr. Tidwell is out there.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Dale, we'll have you click on us and give us a report.
Okay, great. I'm kind of slid in here sideways and barely made it in time. I hope I'm not delaying anybody. If I realize I just barely made the time slot. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with everyone. Mr. Chair, members of the board, my name is Dalen Tidwell, State Director for USDA Wildlife Services. Just to give you a brief update, things are, it's kind of fun to kind of go from one month to the next and try to find some things that are earth-shattering and amazing for you all. But I like to say, we keep business as usual. We do good work, and I think some of the highlights I can share with you for today, and you actually just, as I was listening, covered some of the uniqueness of our weather and the seasons that we've had so far that has made a drastic change in our aerial program for sure, overall with the coyote work specifically. And I'll give you some numbers just to kind of give you an idea of what we've been up against. And as you know, the 70 or 80 mile an hour winds and the lack of snow, and I don't need to tell you why, but I just was curious, even compared just to last year, the difference in our flight hours year to date, meaning October 1st to current today. The comparing even the 2 years, last year we had flown already 486.7 hours in this time frame, and this year we're only at 292.8 hours. So we're almost half, 194 hours less, just in the same time frame as the year before, um, resulting in approximately 2,280 coyotes less than we had done in the previous year and in the same time frame. So, I mean, that kind of says it all right there. We're just looking for good days to get in the air. Everything is in order. Maintenance is all up to date. We were able to get in underneath the last engine order replacement before the price increase at the end of the year, which I don't know, like I was saying, probably saved us 25%, but that one has been ordered and ready to go for 9.5 Tango. We will likely make it. It's going to happen even in the middle of the season, I believe, yet still. So it's coming up, so we'll have a little downtime with that. But 765 will need wheels number one and two, I think, replaced out of anyway, the engine wheels specifically. They're a little more expensive, but yet we can put that off till after the season. We'll probably do that through the summer months. Just in general, yeah, I feel comfortable with the maintenance and where we are financially. With the contract, we will get into a new maintenance contract in June, which we look to renew as is with our existing facility there in Lewistown. Um, so yeah, that's kind of that it for the aerial portion. Back to the finance, we are still, and maybe you've already addressed this today, and apologize for just kind of just jumping in here in the middle, but we are still looking for, I believe, the legislative approval for the increase in the Department of Livestock agreement, the modification. I have the mod written and ready to go. So basically, whenever that is the next step on your side is processed, I'll be ready, and just let me know, and we'll get that modification uh, sent up and signed and back and forth and the whole process. So that's good. Um, you, yeah, for that's kind of where we're at for the funding. Everything's in place to continue. Um, Let me jump to kind of the status with our hiring. We are still under the administrative position hiring freeze. We are not allowed to replace or hire any admin staff. And so right now we've got myself and Lori. She's our data tech. We're covering for all of Ann's good work. Kind of makes long days and full days. And in fact, that's kind of, I feel bad not showing up. I would like to drive over there and visit with y'all, but I can use this extra drive time to keep up. But with that said, there is discussion in the airwaves of folks that are listening, and they're aware of the concerns and kind of the next step of trying to restructure and rebuild. And everybody's just kind of hanging there, holding their breath on that final restructuring announcement, and then they can kind of feel comfortable saying what's next. So in the meantime, I'm holding my breath here, and we're staying just underwater on on our day-to-day stuff. Um, we're good though. One thing to note: the U.S. Fish and Wildlife was able to push through their agreement with Montana Wildlife Services for grizzly bear work. That was in question. The Department of Interior had frozen all of their obligating uh, agreements for any funding, and through some discussion and connections and talking, and they recognized the value of this agreement with Wildlife Services, and so we were able to get that $250,000 annual grizzly bear agreement with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, actually signed and finished as of this week. So that's kind of a huge thing right now in this current climate. Um, Boy, I think, well, I will, for the sake of conversation, run you through some investigative report numbers. Year to date, we've got 47 fiscal year, excuse me, fiscal year to date, we've got 47 investigative reports. Black bear, you're looking at one calf, two goats, and two sheep. Grizzlies is six calves and five cattle. Mountain lion is one alpaca, three goats, one lamb, and five sheep. And then wolf was five calves, and two cattle, two guard dogs, two lambs, and three sheep. That the actual numbers are tracking pretty normal. It feels like we're not quite, as I think previously discussed, the livestock and the wildlife are in kind of different areas and stuff, but I did crunch the numbers again, kind of comparing even to the last years, and we're pretty close. I think we're right in that 40 to, well, what are we now, 47 in the same time frame. So I can't really point at a huge difference there, just in the sheer numbers, but it just seems overall the calls that we're getting are a little bit slower and in between. But that's it for IRs. I think I better leave it at that. I'm open to any questions, of course.
David, have you seen bear activity? Are they coming out of hibernation or did they ever go into hibernation?
So that's funny you should ask. I just before this call, I got the information back. We had a suspected grizzly bear that had come out, but it was a false alarm, false claim, or not a false claim, but it was not a grizzly. There was no evidence of grizzly bear. But that really has been the only thing that we've been getting on the airwaves. There's not been any damage since the bears should have gone to bed. So I can't speak to that any more than just that one potential, and it turned out not to be. So the answer is really no. We've not seen any uptick in any of the grizzly damage or bears in general. I guess I include the black bears.
With your limited airtime, are you seeing more take in ground activity or are you just off that much?
Well, yeah, no, that's a good point. We basically had to, hunker down and get below the wind and do some more work. I guess just a quick comparison for firearms last year would have been 367, and this year we're already up to 445. Let me pull up. Neck snares is pretty close. Actually, our neck snares, if I'm reading this right, has gone down a little bit. Neck snares was 909, and now this year is only 834. And footholds are about right the same, net between 90 and 100 in that same period. So I think maybe the firearms, it shows a little bit of an increase, but I think we're just waiting for the wind to quit blowing. Right now, it's shaking the walls in the hangar here. So
It was like being sandblasted yesterday.
yeah, that's right.
One more, Mr. Chairman. If the wind does stop blowing, you want to come fly in the Gallatin, that'd be great. We have a lot of coyotes right now, and we lost a couple calves to them, and I know other people are having issues too.
Yes, duly noted, and for sure, and this is for everybody. You reach out to your specialist, make sure you're on the schedule, and they know how to time it right. Especially if you've got active killing going on, that's we bump those to priority list and make sure we can get there. they go a lot of places and they won't know unless you let them know, and they're okay with that. They go where they historically are prepared, they understand the timing and everything, and so you'll likely see them anyway. But if you have a need, please reach out to them and get on the schedule.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Dale.
Very good. Yes, thank you all for your time, and much appreciated, and we'll plan to visit again.
Thank you.
Hmm?
I said thank you.
Okay, go. Run the brands.
No, I said we probably should slow down a little bit.
Oh, we can, I mean.
But one
Lunch
thing,
is out. I eyeballed lunch. I made eye
know.
contact. Yeah.
one thing I was gonna ask of the table, if I may, Mr. Chair, just while we do have a few moments and you're 2 hours ahead of schedule. One, we could also take public comment from stockbrokers who are sitting in the back of the room because maybe they don't want to stick around to hear Jay anymore.
I think that's what she's here for.
Maybe that's what
She's here for that.
But I was just going to ask, and this is an open-ended question. There's no answer, but we talked about that. At our next full in-person meeting, we will be talking about legislation, and you mentioned today about penalties. So a few things that come up, but there's a moment here to just say if there are any unmet legislative needs that we should be looking at that board members are aware of that you haven't heard us mention or you think might not be on our radar, either legislative or budgetarily, just to say there's a time here to bring those things on the table, or it's also just to be aware of things that you should be maybe sending us some stuff so we can have it ready for at your next meeting.
And I say this without having discussed it with anybody else in industry, so I'm nervous to say it in a public meeting, but just with the way that the milk funding is going and we're just losing these dairies, how are we feeling about asking for more general fund to cover inspection fees? And I don't know if that'll be industry supported, but I was thinking about that during Brian's report today. And I don't think it's going to get better. So.
No, that's good. I'm writing down.
Okay. I don't know if there will be support for that, but it is just getting a little stressful. So.
So we're losing more,
Yeah. Okay. Well, when that one big one in Victor went out, that was a big hit. And I know that there's a lot of colonies that are probably not going to stay in the old dairy industry either. So just getting a little lean.
Question for you. What happens when those dairies go? I understand the colonies, they just switch, but when a private, that one went out, what happened to the land, the facilities, the cattle?
They run beef cattle, so they just basically switched their entire operation over to, and I assume we're friends on Facebook, so I can see a little bit of what he does. And it looks like he is still using the barn for maybe raising some heifers for somebody, and then I know his son has a pretty good cow-calf operation. So I think that's kind of where all that land went and all the feed and stuff. So.
But as far as the cattle, are they just?
They're gone.
So hamburger.
A lot of them went to Florida or Texas. They went south.
They went in. They stayed in dairies. They didn't go to the slaughter chain.
Correct. Yeah, they went to other dairies, and I don't know. I think maybe some stayed in the state, but a lot of them I know went south, like Arizona south.
Yeah, most of them went out of state. I know them very, very well.
Yeah.
I actually sell their calves, their beef calves. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, there again, just another question. How many sizable dairy operations are there in the state now?
I think Brian said 30, and then
the full dairy.
Yeah.
30.
Yeah. And is it really I guess also what is our reference for sizable?
Right.
Because most of us are milking 100 too. or less.
Say, in my mind, a sizable dairy is more than 5 cows you have to mess with.
You should come to my Dairy Max meetings. Those guys milk like 8,000 head. So we are not sizable in the state of Montana
Yeah.
at all.
Those are just pool dairies.
The
That
30.
go into the plants, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen a little bit of an uptick in people that want to do some niche boutique things that are outside of the pool dairies that are asking for licensures, but they're not sizable. They'd be serving a very local niche market
Yeah.
for cheese, those types of things. And they might not even be milking animals. They may just be bringing in milk from someone else and making the cheese.
Yeah.
So how big is Kalispell dairy?
So, Mr. Chairman? Oh. Mr. Chairman? Yes, well, and this is a different subject, but I didn't want to catch you guys closing, but you know, you've mentioned trying to get into the 20th century with our penalties, and I'm just wondering if we need to what kind of research we need to do to reach out to our stakeholders and also to maybe the county attorneys to see where the threshold is to have a penalty that's they're going to enforce. You know, if we raise the penalties but they still don't enforce them, we're not really gaining anything. So I'm just wondering if we need to kind of do some outreach and also maybe some research before we try and decide where that number needs to be.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I was in the legislature, we were doing FWP things, and the county attorney gets they get half of the fine. And that, I mean, that's what it was then. And at the time it was a $25 fine for about half the thing. So for $12.50, they're not gonna do anything. So everything got bumped over $100 or whatever at that point, so.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Chair, I'll speak to what Mr. Curry said and Mr. Bodner's back there and Ms. Simon. They've worked with us a little bit too. You know, and I know Ms. Simon's tried to do a little bit more outreach maybe with county attorneys and in her role and having conversations with those people about different things. But the appetite for enforcement at that level sometimes can be a challenge. We've had some situations where, you know, we've had some pretty clear cut, you know, felony situations that look like they could proceed to a conviction, but they would be pled down to lesser things. And so some of those things. So there's, you know, so when you talk about appetite for enforcement, I would just put a caveat on there too, is to remember that, and this may be a more supportive thing for our county attorneys, that we don't always understand everything that's on their plate and what they're having to deal with. And the decisions they're having to make about what they do with their finite time and resources in a community, what gets enforced versus what gets pled down or negotiated to a different thing, so we don't get our full penalties or we don't get a full, you know, fledged maybe felony. Where there's a felony, we get a misdemeanor instead. So there's some of those things. And Ms. Simon's walked up. She's probably gonna.
She's got an opinion.
She's probably gonna disagree with everything I just said.
No.
I was like, we do have to realize that when we put those penalties out there, that there does have to be an appetite of those who have the prosecutorial authority to actually execute on it.
And Mr. Chair, members of the board, I think probably the best thing that we can do to encourage prosecution is present them with the most thoroughly investigated, well-documented case that we can. Make it as easy as for them as possible. And that's something we have control over. But I think if we hand over a clean, very well investigated and well-organized case, our chances of them doing something with it are going to be better.
Thanks, Chairman. I still think, I agree there, but if the fine needs to be substantial enough to stop them from wanting to do it in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, if the fine's here, we can hand them all the stuff and they're gonna go, it's still gonna take me a week to do all this and I get $50 out of it, it's not worth my effort. So we need to raise those fines to make it a deterrent that people don't even try it.
And just from the experience of working on the ones I did with FWP, managed to get through to where the judge had a lot of leeway on it too, where, the big one I was working on was hunting without permission, and it was, if they do it more than once, the judge has leeway just to really go after them, because they figured out that on any of those cases, by the time you catch somebody, they've already committed it at least 9 times. That's what we found out. That was the research that they had on. Or any of the wildlife things, by the time they get it to a court situation, those people have committed that at least 9 times. Unless they're able to get them on some big sting thing or whatever, but on the average.
Mr. Chairman.
Gene.
Yeah, so, the other part of my question is, the acceptance of, in the, ag community of an increased penalty for, something, let's just use an example of moving livestock without an inspection. I don't even know what the penalty is right now, but, if we raise that, at some point, are we gonna get any pushback from the producers, because they think that we're kind of overstepping what they feel should be just kind of an understood situation, or are we just going to go try and make sure that the penalties are severe enough? And I agree with everything that's been said as far as they need to be substantial enough to kind of hopefully deter people before they even think about doing it. But I just wonder about the acceptance of us, because it's going to have to be fairly substantial increase, I think, in penalties in order to achieve both of the scenarios that we're looking at, trying to deter the actual offense, and then also getting county attorneys to feel like they want to spend the time prosecuting. So that's going to be quite a substantial increase from where we are now, I believe.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, one thing I just wanted to add on the discussion of fines is your ability to do something about this is somewhat limited, because in Montana, there's a constitutional requirement that when a judge is sentencing someone and imposing a fine, they need to take into account the defendant's ability to pay. So you can set high maximum fine amounts, but the court is still going to have to look at the individual defendant and their financial circumstance and determine what they have the ability to pay. They are required to do that under the law. So keep that in mind. I think some of our fine statutes set very low maximum fines. Now, I would recommend taking a look at those, but every case is going to be different. If you have a defendant who's financially very well off, you maybe can get to the higher range of your fine. But if you have someone that doesn't have a lot of exempt assets, or non-exempt assets, it might not be effective even if we did change the statute. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Little nuances that we don't know about. I didn't know that was a thing. Anything else on, you finish on your dairy comment?
Yeah, I think so.
And lunch is ready whenever you're ready.
Well, maybe we'll have a break for lunch, come back at noon or 12 or whatever. And then, Jay finishes up.
Jay looks hungry. I think he wants to eat before he presents.
All right.
Coming back at 12.
Coming back at 12.
And we are recording.
Call the meeting back to order. So we're doing Brands Enforcement Division. Jay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Bodner, Brands Division Administrator. Just have some quick updates for you today. I'll make sure I have all this shut off, sorry.
Take your time. 2 hours.
Well, I won't make you late. I think we'll keep everything pretty short and to the point today. So I apologize for this. Okay. I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at with market and dealer license renewals. So this time in the spring, we typically go out with these renewals. We are working on trying to be a little bit more efficient and streamline our process. So we will be sending out all these letters and applications to all the markets and dealers to renew their licenses. We are working directly with state print and mail. So typically we were doing a lot of that in-house. We came to the conclusion, we give them the information, we give them the list, and they send it all out, and it's much more efficient, I think, on our end. And certainly there's a little bit of cost involved in that. We save time and money just from staff resources by doing that. So we are in the process of just kind of finalizing the letter that will go out to them and kind of the communication and information packet that we'll send out to them. We are scheduled to go out with that letter March 13th, Friday 13th. And so then we'll give those individuals about 6-7 weeks to review that information and get those renewals back to us. So May 1 is the date when the licenses expire. And we do get a lot of individuals that do kind of miss that deadline, and then we just reach out to them a second time and try to get the rest of the folks that are have not renewed, get those caught up. And there are individuals that just do not want to renew their licenses. So we have about, on the entire list of dealers, so that's dealers and agents, there's about 436 listed. So about half of that are what the actual dealers are. So the letter goes out to the dealers. They review who they have as the agents on there, and then they can make any adjustments they want, add, delete, leave, and then get that information back to us. And so pretty streamlined process. And we have gone out a little bit earlier last year, and we will kind of continue that schedule because it seemed to work pretty well. So just kind of moving on, this is more, I think, just as an interest topic, is just wanted to kind of keep you up to date on where we're at with the Missoula feral horse issue. So we did meet with those individuals in the county, some of their law enforcement back in December. They've had continued kind of discussions. The county has built actually a website to collect information and collect comments. We've had a few Zoom calls where we were kind of working with them and looking at kind of developing a program, or at least what a public meeting might look like. Their idea at the time was to kind of divide up into different stations. So individuals, as they kind of worked through the room, could go to different stations. Dr. Smansky was kind of like on the animal health side, disease. I was kind of more on, the enforcement side. If somebody wanted to, sign a petition to remove these abandoned horses. So that was kind of the concept of this meeting that was going to be scheduled. It was going to be scheduled for March 11th, and we were all on a go. And then I think recently that community has gotten quite a bit more active. And they had a petition that was kind of working its way around that community. I think they had at least 1,100 people sign this petition. And I'm pretty sure all 1,100 said, don't touch these horses. And so as I kind of looked through some of the comments on the website, I by no means looked through all of those, just a glimpse. But the majority of individuals that put comments in certainly do not want any actions taken to these horses. So they did cancel the meeting. Dr. Smansky and I are just kind of on hold at this point. We are going to try to meet with him, I think, next week, just on a little Zoom call. And I don't know what that will all really entail. I suppose they'll fill in some blanks for us, but we're just basically in a holding pattern. I have, just kind of looking through some of the pictures and different things that folks are doing. I mean, people are pretty, they're feeding them on a regular basis. I think they're throwing hay bales out there. It's like everything across the board. And I think a little band of kind of studs have kind of moved in that had been kicked out, but now they're kind of wandering around. And so it's getting to be a bigger issue, but the community, for the most part, really has, I don't think they have a lot of interest in taking any management action. So
Where are these in Missoula?
So as you're leaving to go down to the Bitterroot and just kind of as Reserve kind of meets in with 93, Walmart's right there. They're just kind of back in there a little way.
Yeah, if you Google it, there's a lot of stuff that comes up.
Basically the town, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, they had a big deal on the news the other night about them.
So why are we wasting our time? If they don't wanna do anything with them, why?
We can't.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kleinsaucer, we really aren't doing anything with them at this point. So we still do field calls from individuals. But basically we tell them, that is a county authority issue right now. And so we don't take any issues with those. And we do get calls because that's just one small band that's, very visible, in a residential area. There are, roughly, I don't know, probably 100 head that are farther down into the Bitterroot. And they do stay on mainly kind of a ranch. It's more of a conservation type ranch, but a ranch. And they stay mostly on kind of private property. They do dip off onto some private property where they do have some interactions with other livestock, other horse owners. So I've gotten those phone calls too. And, people that would like to see some kind of, some kind of action. So yeah, here's the kind of the
sort of the southwest side of Missoula. So if I go back a little bit, you'll see, so there's the ball, right? And so it's right in here. And is there a Walmart up here somewhere?
Yeah.
Been as far as
to
the Walmart?
It's pretty close to where Reserve comes in.
So safe in the corner there, whatever they call it.
Mr. Chairman, so if they're just roaming around and nobody's claiming deed to them, what stops somebody from just catching them and doing with them what they want?
Certainly, I think that's an option. If they were to tell us they did that, then we probably would have to have some action because they don't have a right to those animals necessarily. Now, if somebody was to do that, I don't know. We would probably never know. Although the neighborhood community watches them daily. So I don't know that you could actually take action without somebody seeing you.
Yeah.
I think these individuals are named for
all the horse runners.
The horses are named and
chase wild horses and stuff.
And we would anticipate that, come this, spring, later on in the spring, maybe first part of summer, those mares probably we're going to see another crop of foals. One has been very consistent yearly. And so we probably will see, and all the 3 colts that are on there now are all stud colts. So, that of course creates some challenges there too. So I provide this as just as a kind of an interesting topic.
Yeah.
We really don't have a lot of, probably management tools that we have in place right now to take too much action.
I think we've successfully, for a while, there was a concept of our name was thrown out quite a bit in, the Department of Livestock. I think we finally have helped the county understand that, again, to your question, Mr. Witchman, definitions, right? So almost all of our definitions around horses and where they're standing deal with horses that have an owner. So even a stray horses, we assume an ownership. And so we take them, we hold the proceeds. But in this case where they've been there for decades, they were owned by someone at some point. It's basically rumors at this point of who owned them or multiple people owned them. There's a definition in code for abandoned horses. And so that's what makes these different. They fall in that classification of abandoned horses. And so they have to be dealt with differently than you would in a stray. If it was just a simple stray situation, we'd go pick them up, because we wouldn't know who the owner was if they don't have a brand on them that we can find. And we would sell those horses and hold the proceeds waiting for a owner to show up. But we can't apply that. We've looked at all the different scenarios because we were asked to, and there's no other way we feel we could define these than abandoned horses. And so that abandoned horse statute is what has to apply to this particular population.
Yeah, and just as a follow-up, so that abandoned statute does shift much of the burden to the county.
Yes, the county has to, and I'll say, I mean, we're on a public meeting. I don't know how many people might be watching, I'm sure, but if you do read the statute says that if they receive a petition from 5 landowners, that they shall organize a roundup. So the law is actually, as I've expressed to them, I think pretty clear that if you had 5 landowners say they want something done, you shall do something. It's not a may, it's a shall. But it is still upon the county commissioners to declare a roundup, appoint a roundup commissioner. And what we've offered is if they ever got to that point of doing a roundup, we would assist them within the roundup, but we can't do it under our own authority.
It seems to, Mr. Chairman, just seems like most of the angst, I think, from individuals, well, there's a number of individuals who don't want any actions, leave them alone, don't touch them, but I think in addition to that, I think the people that would be willing to do something have a real fear that these animals would be sold and not live out their life in
I was waiting to see how you were going to describe
as a companion animal or something along those lines. So I think that's the biggest concern. I think if you, and not that the county couldn't do that either. I mean, if, you could have an adoption program, you could do whatever you wanted and similar to like a BLM wild horse kind of situation where, there are options there that you could probably, I mean, if you look at the animals just from, kind of I don't know about bloodline, but at least a conformation standpoint, actually, they're pretty decent looking horses. So,
yeah, other than they need a little trim on the mane and stuff. They didn't look too bad. They didn't look.
They really, there was like a lot of the Google images. They're pretty good.
So you're up for adopting 5 of them?
Yeah, Alan and I were shopping the pictures on the way home last time. So
a little hay, a little grain.
I know we were coming up with plans.
Are there no concerns animal health wise? We require horses to come into the state with the Coggins test and, different things. And these are just roaming freely with no vaccinations whatsoever.
With Dr. Szymanski and I have had that conversation. I wouldn't say that our concern is 0%, because we don't have any testing data on them. We don't know. Certainly, if someone imported a positive animal to that area in that proximity, you could get a transfer over into that population, and then without any management of them, you'd have no management of the disease situation, right? And its ability to infect other domestic horses in the area. So I wouldn't say it's 0. I don't know that we have a great concern because that population's been there for a long time, unless something has been moved and Dr. Kalzak's walking in to give a more expert opinion. But I don't think, I think I'd be safe to say I don't know that it's an alarming risk, but I don't think we could ever say that it would be no concern at all with having a unmanaged population of horses somewhere that a disease could get into that population and create, something we deal with in cattle, some sort of endemic wildlife health issue that affects all the domestic producers or domestic owners that are in that area.
I would say, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Pettis, one of the issues that when we did have the initial meeting, one of the landowners there who does own horses, livestock, cattle, and horses, he did have, and those horses have interactions, the feral horses have interactions with his horses on a fence line, that he had kind of a situation where those feral horses did have some kind of respiratory runny nose. And then as they had interactions with his horses then became caught whatever they were passing around. So
Now that the amateurs have spoken, I guess we'll look back to the she wants to give some expert
Yeah,
thoughts on that.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Honeycutt, I don't think we have any reason to suspect that these forces are carrying something
Yeah.
particularly detrimental. They certainly fall in sort of the typical under-tested, under-surveilled group of horses that we might worry about EIA if they've been there a really long time. But we don't have any reason based on what we know about them right now to suspect they're carrying anything particularly dangerous.
Yeah, one of the things Dr. Shemansky had asked for is that if we ever did participate in a roundup, that we would do some workup and testing on them as they were captured, but if it ever came to that point.
all right. So I'll keep you informed if anything transpires with any future meetings, but at this point, looks like everything's on hold. So
The herd will continue to grow.
yeah,
And one day somebody will have to do something.
the herd probably will expand here in the next 4 or 5 months.
What keeps them from going on the highway?
Well, yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kleinsasser, they, for the most part, have been living in the neighborhood. So, you know, they're on lawns, people are feeding them. There has been one that was hit, two actually, vehicle collisions. One horse got its leg broke, and so the sheriff or highway patrol had to go take care of that animal. The other one that was hit did total the vehicle, but it didn't kill the horse. So there has been some collisions, and that does raise a fair amount of concern, certainly from the law enforcement and the county. I mean, it is a residential area, but still, I mean, even hitting a horse at 25 miles an hour.
It's a big animal.
Big animal. And those horses, a high profile horse like that, an animal like that, typically, you know, in a small vehicle, there could be a serious injury. So, yep. So that's a quick update on that. I just, in addition to that, I wanted to give you a quick update on just kind of our communication. So at one point, I think I had provided some information to the board about we were looking at as T-Mobile was teaming up with Starlink, and there's some opportunity for us as enforcement to have better coverage across the state. So they did do kind of a beta testing back in December. They went, I think, live with that in June or July of last year. We kind of held off on that. We initially were looking at maybe 3, 4 of our officers maybe engaging in that, but all the capabilities that they have right now are just messaging, so text and some location sharing. And there also is a requirement that if you were going to engage with them, like an application, an app, that you have to provide that to them so they can make sure that you're not going to burn up all their bandwidth, I would assume. So we have not done any of those things. We've not shared ServiceNow with them. We're thinking at this point, we'll just probably wait till the system gets a little bit more fully developed before we were to engage with 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of our officers. Because we do know that there are a lot of, well, everybody here knows there are a lot of parts of the state where service is pretty spotty, and it would be nice to be able to certainly run our system because it's, you know, on the web. But until I think we get this more fully developed, we're just gonna kind of watch and see what happens with the system. So I want to give a quick update on that. Also, just we do have a meeting scheduled with the Blackfeet Land Department, so we typically meet with them every year, and that's usually in December. This year got kind of put off, and so they asked if we'd be interested in traveling up to their community. So we did agree to that. So we have a date of March 19th, and I think we're going to try to meet with some of their tribal business council folks also. So. So we're looking forward to that meeting. I think from our standpoint, it will be Mr. Honeycutt, myself, Dr. Szymanski, and then I'm not sure if Mr. Curry will join us or not. And then, we'll probably have our area supervisor and our local district investigator there, so.
Kids these days.
So,
I didn't look at the paper tonight.
Mike, unpin him.
I'm gonna shut the camera off. He's not, I don't think he is pinned. Just distracting. Somebody take a picture.
I know.
Screenshot.
Jay,
so.
you were so boring, you put somebody to sleep.
I didn't think it was that boy. We had a lot of discussion on the horses.
We did have a lot of
I don't have very much more. I just had two more things. I just wanted to give you a quick update on service now. So we had quite a bit of discussion with Mr. Moore on, and I provided that in a little update to the one of the weekly updates. So on service now, so if somebody checks in mixed calves, at the other end, if they just bought the steers out of that group, can we change that? And so we can do that. We did have some of our staff here in the office did do a step-by-step process. We did ship that. I did send that out to all the market staff so that they have kind of a step-by-step process. And if the opportunity exists and you have the ability, please kind of update that so you can say, yep, Jay Bodner bought 50 head of steers out of that group, or heifers, or whatever it may be. So hopefully that kind of resolves that issue moving forward. We are also just kind of on the tail end of kind of finalizing our lifetime horse inspections and getting that into service now. We have met with them this week. We have maybe a small tweak. It doesn't involve three parts, so the brands, state print mail, and then the state IT folks, and everybody's got to build their links, but we're kind of on the tail end of that program, so hopefully we get that wrapped up. We do have a meeting scheduled with GlideFast and kind of the next steps, so we have a big list and seeing at least what it's going to take to kind of tackle that. And then one of the things that Mr. Honeycutt mentioned is on the list is just, what would it take for a local inspector to get involved in that? So I'm pretty excited about trying to engage in that to see, what permissions, what changes in the system do we need? Because I think there are a number of individuals out there that would be jumping the chance to beta test that for us. So that's all I had for the board this afternoon. So answer any questions.
Yeah, I had a friend of a friend lives out of state. They're looking at buying some land here in Montana. Wanted a specific brand, did all the research. How does that work where he's out of state, doesn't own land in Montana? I mean, there's, I guess I told him I don't know. I know in Montana it's got to go before us and see if there's any conflicts, but where he's out of state now and there wouldn't be any conflict, can he just apply for a brand and get it, or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Richard. So we do have some individuals out of state that do have Montana brands. Typically, they're going to have a mailing address here. So some kind of tie to that, but we do have a number of out of state brands. So individuals can do that if he wants to, jump ahead of the curve, and try to apply for that. Certainly he can do that. It's maybe this is a good opportunity. So as he's done the research, certainly our brand recorder, because there are a number of characters that conflict with other characters. So if he's looking for a EJ, let's just say, and he doesn't see any EJs, but those characters conflict with other characters. So, initially they think, individuals might think, well, nobody has that, so that's available. Well, that may not always be the case.
Yeah, like I said, it is.
And the other thing that would be difficult about applying for a brand before you bought your property is you got to declare your counties of range.
Yes.
Well, and that's what I told him. I said that it has to go before to make sure it's okay. So he was, well, I'm not in Montana. I have no conflicts because I don't have. Well, I'll ask because I don't know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But one day, if you bought land and actually were putting it on animals, you would have conflicts.
Yeah.
Or could
have conflicts.
Yeah.
Could have come, that's why I said
Yeah, because in those applications, yeah, you do have to identify
yeah,
your county range.
So you have to have a Montana address.
You have to have an address.
Yeah.
okay.
And we do verify that, maybe you think you're gonna try a different county because it's easier. We do verify that, people actually do live there or are running cattle there, or we try to verify.
And,
People don't try to game the system.
well, I said, I'm sure it's the same route, but I've gotta ask before I give advice that I don't know the proper answer to. Sure.
Did you weigh in on Nebraska's brand, bill debacle?
Yeah, actually, yeah, so Mr. Chairman, yes, we did write a letter, sharing our concerns over that. We also included, not only from a brand standpoint, actually had Dr. Szymanski had a couple little lines on there from just an animal traceability standpoint. We did include some language that said that, there are, actually, one of the nice things about Service Now is that I pulled the data to see how many cattle had moved to Nebraska in the last 3 years, which was about 1 million head. So we could use some of those statistics to use in that letter. I actually just did get a call, or I had been emailing the individual for the Nebraska Brand Committee, just to get an update on where he's tried to call me a couple times a day, but I haven't had a chance to, because of the board meeting, touch base with him just to kind of to see where things had transpired and where we're at. But yes, we did share a letter. It was in opposition, but I think we tried to word it like we didn't want to overstep our bounds, but we wanted to share a certain amount of concerns that Montana would have, and that we did support, their current system of brands.
Yeah, certainly, I think, one of the things where you might have skin in the game, not that folks maybe would listen to us, but often we deal with people who've gotten themselves into sticky situations in other states, and it would be yet another place where if you're trying to retain ownership on animals in a feedlot, and I understand that the eastern half of Nebraska is already branch free, but at least in these areas where it would extend, you'd have to be honest with producers of, well, if you retain ownership, just know those animals can leave, and it's potentially no one's going to know they left and went further east because nothing's happening there. And that's, and if you find yourself in that situation, while, the Montana Department of Livestock, we have no jurisdiction there. There's nothing, we can't protect you there, but we do feel more confident if you're doing business in places where we know by law things are supposed to get inspected before they move again or change ownership. That gives us more confidence. And we can't do anything about the areas that have already don't have brands, but we wouldn't want to see areas that have brands lose that quality.
So yeah, on my list is to call this gentleman back today, and I'll get the update on where we're at, and I'll certainly provide that in one of the weekly.
Yeah, it's popped up on a couple of things I listened to.
Mr. Chairman, I did try to go look to see if I could find the hearing where they did it, and their system isn't quite as easy to kind of track those hearings as what we've developed here for our state legislature. Ours actually, as I look at some of the other states, is a pretty good system. So it's easy to find hearings. You can follow it all. There's been that, or I don't know how to operate it as well, but it didn't appear like they were as easy to find. So
I watched some of it. It was pretty much what you'd expect. These guys want it and these guys don't want it. It costs us millions of dollars for these cattle that don't mean anything, and we want ours protected. And it's like, who they're going to listen to.
Was it kind of cow versus feedlot?
Yeah. Feedlot said it cost them too much money to get them inspected, and Cowboy said we want them branded so we know where they're at. And it's pretty much what it was.
And we have some elements of that, where when I've received complaints about fees here before, that, and then larger producers who, in our state, where I hear that come up. So if it was to come up into our policy sphere, those that have large holdings, large numbers of cattle, but they they can't use the deeded ground grazing permit, so they're having to pay inspections both ways. And so I do, that's the other thing is like, how much do you want to let that sort of attitude of, well, I don't like the fees, I want to save money, so I want to get rid of this system that protects everybody so I can spend a little bit less money.
If you can afford to
Yeah.
pay the bill, sorry.
So that's all I had this afternoon.
All right, thank you.
Unless there's any other more questions.
Question for him.
Thank you.
So now we're on to comments from public. Ellie.
Good afternoon, board. Ellie Brighton, Montana Stock Growers. As always, thank you for letting me sit through your meetings. Letting you guys know today that I am leaving Stock Growers in the next few weeks when my baby arrives. I'll be staying home, and it was a difficult decision, and I will definitely miss being involved in everything, and miss the job, and miss hearing what's happening and being in these meetings. So I appreciate you guys and all your knowledge, and I've learned a lot from these meetings, just like about state government, about how this department functions, about all the different areas that you guys represent, and it's been really, really interesting, and I just appreciate what you guys did.
Well, it's an open meeting, pop in.
Yeah, might come
Thank you,
say,
baby.
come get lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Do it right, you get lunch.
Yeah.
so, thank you guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
It'll be
Thank you.
fun.
Yeah.
You won't miss
Appreciate
this
you.
at all.
Is there anybody out there on public?
Do you want to make any comments?
Only,
Can you make this camera live so you can just see?
I don't think I can now that I've turned it off. I think I can ask him to turn it back.
Kind of wanted to see if we're still in the same spot.
I would fall asleep too, sitting in that lawn chair, 95 degrees.
After lunch.
Yeah,
Yeah, after you ate at night.
the Zoom meeting is it's so bad.
It's terrible.
All right.
All right, so next we'll have to set a date for the next board meeting.
Yeah, so
You better get your schedule out because you had a full schedule for us.
yeah, so I
That's all
think
there.
the biggest, we'll probably have to maybe do an impromptu meeting at some point. But we don't know that yet. But as far as scheduling the next, I'd say formal board meeting, we would need a decision done before, I'm into April now. So this will give you how the latest we could probably have a meeting is around April. So it ends the 6th fall, so I want to be a week before that. So April 29th would be in April 30th. That'd be kind of the latest that we go. Of course, I see that Jay is planning his district investigator meeting. I got a hold for the 29th and the 30th and the 1st. Is that correct, Jay?
That's, my tentative dates right now.
Okay. And so if you go the week ahead of that,
I got a meeting on the 23rd.
okay.
21st.
Yes, the 21st, I think will be fine. There'll probably be a cabinet meeting that day, but I can make Brian go to that by himself. He loves going to cabinet meetings by himself.
Perfect.
As do you.
Yeah.
So we're gonna skip March.
Yeah, usually we do skip March just because everybody's schedule, when we start trying to figure it out, is so hectic because of when they're expecting calves or other things to occur, or they're out running around the country selling stuff. So, so the 21st would be, looks like I'm not showing that any staff have asked for that day off yet. So unless something changes for staff, which you have to have everybody we need to have a meeting on that day. Gene?
Yeah, no, I guess the 21st would work. The 23rd would work, for me. The 22nd wouldn't. So
22nd's my birthday.
What? Of April?
Mm-hmm.
It's my wife's birthday.
I know we've had this conversation.
Oh,
for
sorry.
2 years, but it's okay.
Forget this stuff, okay?
So 21st of April?
21st April.
Oh, funny.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I will be getting everyone, evaluation information. And I just want to remind you that that is one of the duties that we have as a board, is evaluating our executive officer. And I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be in the room, when we tried to, finalize that. So, we will plan on that for the April meeting. And, so I just want to reiterate that is one of our duties. And I think, last time, Lily had made the comment that maybe the least techie board member that we have, because he wouldn't get on Venmo or whatever, actually was the one that completed his form and emailed it back to me, completed and did everything just exactly the way I asked. So,
Gold star.
so I think that I would like to make sure that everyone takes it seriously and get it back to me so we can complete the process in the April meeting. So I probably won't get it out until closer, in maybe end of March, somewhere along in there. But I'll try and make sure I leave plenty of time for everyone to get it completed and get it back to me.
Okay.
I thought we'd slip by.
What's that?
I had thought we'd slip by.
All right, anything else? Okay, meeting adjourned.
And so as normal,